Welcome, everybody. Jones AT&T Stadium, Lubbock, Texas. We are here. GamedayU has made it out to West Texas. It's windy. It's kind of warm, kind of cold. I don't know what to make of the weather. I cannot tell.
The wind
we
is
are
making
here.
it cold. That's
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We are here. We are ready to go. Josh Calloway, Colin Kennedy, Malin Roberts, Sam Brown. Guys, what's up? How we doing?
I had my phone stolen, and I've been here for just a couple of hours.
That's Lubbock, yeah.
He got it back though. Don't worry.
I did get it back.
It's returned.
Thank God.
Made some
You can
friends
still
with Lubbock
contact
police.
him.
Heaven forbid.
Just a man of the
Heaven
people.
forbid you lose
People
your
want my
phone.
phone number so
What a
badly,
shame.
they just take my
All
phone.
your sources on there.
So, all my hashtag sources. So, yeah, it's been a fun start to the weekend.
Exactly.
For me.
Got a lot of
Yeah,
fun
nice.
ahead of us too. We got a good football game tonight to come and watch in this beautiful stadium. I'm a big fan of this stadium. First time here.
Yeah, me too.
It's a little bigger than I thought, but
It's a nice layout, yeah, just a little bit smaller than Ames.
yeah, but it's going to be blackout. The energy's going to be
Oh
there.
yeah, later
for
on
all-
tonight, the
all
wind is
night
out of
long.
control. Later
Yeah,
on
this is
tonight,
killing me.
it's gonna be blacked
It's
out.
windy.
It's gonna be crazy here. Tortillas flying everywhere. It should be fun.
Yep.
Now, before we get too
Capital
much
F.
into the K-State game of last week, which was ridiculous, we're gonna get into that in a moment. We got a couple pieces of news this week that I want to get your guys' thoughts on.
Yeah.
First, that we got yesterday actually, Rodney Anderson's gonna forgo his senior season. He's gonna go to the NFL. Something that we kind of saw coming a little bit, but that's official. And also Marcellus Sutton, who hasn't really been that much of a player, but he does see time on the field, out for the season with a leg injury.
Yeah.
Some thoughts there. Where do you want to start?
It's difficult because, I mean, you always talk about running backs at OU, right?
Yeah.
But typically it's in the positive sense. This time around,
It's just been tough.
negative to a degree. I mean, obviously Rodney Anderson pursuing the NFL, props to him. Go do what you want to do. Go achieve your dreams. But it's just difficult because you have to think, man, if he had been healthy this season,
Yeah.
what would this team accomplish?
You look how good the offense is already, and
Yeah.
you're thinking, man, they had Rodney. Like,
Yeah,
He was one of the
it's
best running backs in the country.
Yeah, you could argue the best.
So,
Yeah.
and if you have to think, if Rodney Anderson's around, do they win that Texas game? I say yes.
Probably.
But I think he's going to help an NFL football team win a lot of football games in the future. It's just difficult to see him go. Obviously, I think a lot of people wish him nothing but the best, and he's
Yeah.
always been not only a great player, but a great person, an impactful person in the community. Interesting to see him go, but now, of course, things need to step up in the running back core, and losing a guy like Marcellus Sutton is difficult, obviously, because of the versatility that he brings.
Yeah.
He's an electric athlete. There's no debating.
really
and,
is.
and he really has, to a degree, helped out in the return game as well sometime this season, so that's a different factor in this. Special teams takes a hit with Sutton being out, so all around, it's difficult to see those two guys suffer season-ending injuries and then have to make
Yeah.
decisions.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the situations, Rodney Anderson is third season-ending injury.
Yeah.
That's just tough. In 4 years out of school, you undergo 3 season-ending injuries. That's just tough. And then you look at Sutton, the guy who a lot of players said put in a lot of work in the offseason. You could see it in the spring. You could see it coming in the fall. You could see him working for his opportunity. He earned his opportunity. He showed out. He showed a lot of flashes this season. Just really unfortunate. And now this running back core is a little thin. You're going to see a lot more TJ Pledger moving forward, and Kennedy Brooks now, this freshman that is starting to emerge a little bit. We might see kind of a 3-headed monster come out late
For
this
sure.
season.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Rodney goes, I think it was our Iowa State show. We kind of went back and forth a little bit. A little
Yeah,
bit of
we did.
debate going on, like, should he try a year at OU? Should he go to the NFL? So if you want to check that out, our shows are on YouTube.
I believe I said that he would go to the NFL.
Yeah,
I think
did
the
too. I
assumption
did too.
between all of us was that
Yeah,
he would
I think that's
go,
what
but
we
we were
settled
debating on whether or not
He
he should.
That's what
Yeah.
it was.
Because
Yeah, it
I
wasn't a
thought
for
he
sure
should have
thing.
stayed.
We'll find
Yeah.
out.
There are definitely, pros and cons to each decision, but overall, like you said, that's kind of what we suspected he would do.
Yeah.
So like you said, Colin, I mean, props to him. I hope he has a great career. I hope, the injuries kind of stop in college, because like you said, Sam, he's been through a lot. And obviously, as far as Sutton goes, I mean, obviously that really sucks for him, especially since it happened in practice, That's not what you want to
It's always
see.
frustrating.
But I don't think the OU offense will suffer too much from that, just because, they have other guys in the backfield that are very talented.
Yeah.
And I would just really
Unfortunate,
quickly
though.
touch on this too. I mean, OU, I'm always thinking about recruiting too, because that's just one of the things that I love. And OU has been searching for another running back commit in the 2019
it might open the
class.
door.
And right now, Marcus Major's really their lone
Yeah.
guy.
And
But
he
now
can
that
ball.
Rodney Anderson's
He can
leaving,
ball.
Sam likes him.
leaves open another opportunity. They really
Yeah.
need to find another running back in that class, because if they don't, this running back core is going to be extremely thin with Sutton and Anderson being out.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
we'll see how it
you
goes.
have Kenny Brooks, who's emerging as maybe the best running back on the team. And we thought it was kind of Sermon's job to lose, basically. He might have lost it. Kenny Brooks, not even through any fault of his own. Kenny Brooks is just playing really well. TJ Pledger has emerged, so now you're going to be looking for more of those guys. It just makes it even more thin, though, as you mentioned. Another injury, and you're really hurt. Yeah, Rodney's out. Sermon's been banged up. We thought we might have lost Sermon there.
Hollywood was a little banged up last
Yeah, no,
week.
the injuries bug has kind of gotten through the team a little bit.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that progresses. We'll see which running back can step up and be the guy tonight against Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Before we get too much into that game, let's talk about the game last week.
Yeah.
Y'all, we thought that they would beat Kansas State, and we all said we're pretty sure it'll be a beatdown. It won't be that close. That was just
That
go
wasn't
for
even
it.
that wasn't even like a beatdown. That was a crime. That was murder or something.
It was rough.
Like,
it was
Murder or
100%
something.
domination. K-State did not feel like they belonged on the same field. What stood out to you guys?
I would say for me, it just is so extremely impressive that this offense can have 4 or 5 drives of less than 2 minutes,
Yeah.
2.5 minutes, but at the same time they can win time of
I was
possession.
going to say, how did they win time of possession?
32 plus minutes
Crazy.
of time holding the ball. How? I don't know. Understand
I don't know
how
where
that
that time
works.
came, yeah.
But they put up 51. So what can this offense not do? It seems like any given situation at any moment in the football game, they can go out there and accomplish it easily. So I don't really know what's left to say about this offense then. Did that game solidify this offense potentially as better than last year's?
Yeah.
Because of that result against Kansas State, I'm starting to sway towards the yes. But I think this offense is unbelievable, and that game proved it to me.
And you think about it, the reason why they were so efficient is just because of how deep they are
Yeah.
at all the skill positions. Because you have guys in the backfield like Trey Sermon who can grind it out, grind and get some yards and then
Yeah.
kind of
Spit
chew
it
the
out,
clock
Sam.
out. Yeah, words are hard, man.
Words are hard.
The English
Don't get on to me
language.
now. And then you've got Kennedy Brooke, who's kind of a change of pace back, and even TJ Pledger. And then in the wide receiver core, you've got a deep threat in Hollywood.
Yeah.
You've got CD Lamb, who can catch balls over the top. You've got intermediate threats in Calcaterra, Miles Tees, A.D. Miller, Lee Morris. These guys you can find. Kyler Murray's got an option deep. He's got an option in the intermediate game. He's got an option in the backfield. It's so easy to watch this offense just work. It's beautiful to watch.
Yep.
Before the game last week on the show, we did a little bit of Kyler Murray versus Baker Mayfield comparison, and obviously there's a lot of things to be said about the both of them. There's a lot of differences and similarities there, but all I know is Kyler Murray is a baller.
Yeah.
He's so
That
good.
dude, every game I watch him, I'm like, he's somehow better than the last game.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you look at, Texas, he obviously had 2 turnovers. It was probably his worst game, even though he threw for a bunch of yards, had an overall really good game. I mean, last week, K-State, 19 for 24, 352 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 46 yards on the ground, and a rushing touchdown. What can't this guy do? As much as I love baseball, and I think it's really cool that, he has this deal with the Oakland A's, probably going to be with them next year. It makes me kind of sad that we're not going to see this dude play football anymore. Like, it really kind of pains me a little bit.
It makes you wonder what he would be like had he just come to OU out of high school, or if that he was playing again next year.
Right.
It's insane. Would Ronnie go to the NFL? Kind of,
He's
like,
so good that it
everything
makes me
changes.
sad that he's playing baseball. As cool as I think that is, and I think he's really good at baseball. I've seen him play for OU, and I think he'll be really good for the A's. It still makes me sad.
Yeah.
He's
Just
so good at football.
And a final point or two, really, at the end, just to further up Sam's point, 12 different receivers caught a football.
Yeah.
From
6 guys
Kyler
had
Murray.
at least 2 catches.
Yeah.
I'd
On
like
19 completions, 12 guys.
I'd like to correct you on that because I actually did the research into it because Austin Kendall was 3 for 4 for the game. So 3 of those receivers caught passes from Austin Kendall. Still 9 different receivers on 19 completions, still very impressive.
Yeah.
So 12 total.
12
Yeah.
total,
Yeah.
extremely impressive. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I remember that number just being thrown around after the game like
Yeah.
it was unbelievable. And even then, 9 on 19, that's pretty incredible.
But apparently Austin Kendall doesn't count. But
Yeah, I mean, those were still passes. Sam.
and we don't talk about it enough, Josh, and I want to hear your thoughts on it too. The defense.
I was gonna say, I was where I was going. I was like,
And I
how
honestly,
we not get some of the defense a little
my
bit.
thought was how well they dominated the line of scrimmage against Kansas State, a team that prided itself on physicality. 7
Yeah.
tackles for loss. They were all over the field.
Yeah, they asked them in post game. You guys heard all week that K-State, they're physical. They play big boy football. They're gonna, overpower you guys a little bit. Nope. It was domination. And the defense, the TCU game was one of their best games of the year. We all said, hey, looked pretty good there. You tackle a little bit, secondary. They built on it. They played even better.
Yeah.
Granted, K-State, we're not going to sit here and act like they're a juggernaut offensively.
Or TCU.
Or TCU, and that's why the game tonight is so interesting with Texas Tech on offense. Cliff Kingsbury's system, how that rolls, and this is their first really big test since Ruffin took over. But what's your guys' thoughts on just the defense so far? I mean, since Ruffin took over, everything looks better.
I mean, you say K-State's not an offensive juggernaut. Well, neither was Army. But the OU defense at that time made Army look really good. Army just pounded, won the battle in the trenches just completely. I mean, just dominated that line. But then you look at K-State, which is kind of a similar team in that respect, and they looked nothing like Army. They just couldn't get anything going. And of course, you have to, acknowledge that through the air too, which obviously they're going to throw more than an Army team is. They couldn't really get anything going. Only a few big pass plays given up by the secondary. It's just an overall great performance from them.
Yeah, and I think if you're a Sooner fan, you've seen these last 2 performances. You're very encouraged. Don't get your hopes up too high.
Yeah.
Because like we said, those teams aren't exactly juggernauts. This is going to be the first real test. There's a lot of options on this Texas Tech offense, kind of like OU's. They're very deep in the skill positions. They've got a couple nice running backs. Antoine Wesley, 3rd in the country in receiving yards. And then you've got TJ Vasher on the outside, this tall guy, kind of like CeeDee Lamb, who can get balls over the top.
Yeah.
And Alan Bowman, who's kind of broken out and has kind of introduced himself to the college football world as a freshman.
I just think that we talk about it so much. You have to give props to Ruffin, not only because of how he's calling the game and managing it, but the changes that he made to me have really stand out.
Yeah, he simplified things, and you can tell it.
Yeah.
The players look more comfortable out there.
I mean, Ronnie Perkins getting in there more often, to me, has been a significant improvement on the defensive line.
Definitely.
Jalen Redmond coming back, what a boost this guy has provided.
Yeah.
The young guys in there, I mean, Redmond and Perkins are going to be playing here for the next 3, maybe 4 seasons together. That pass rush is unbelievable, and Ruffin trusted those guys to give them the opportunities. On top of that, Robert Barnes, I think that he's had a great impact as far as the safety position. He has really gotten in and provided some physicality and toughness that they needed in the back end. And Trey Brown, of course, stepping in as a starting corner. That unbelievable game he had against TCU was followed up by another great performance against Kansas State.
And most importantly, they're having fun again.
Yeah.
They're enjoying it. It's a game at the end of the day. They didn't look like they were having fun. Now they're energized. They're rallying behind the coaching staff. You can tell they love playing for
No
Ruffin.
one's trying to quit the team at half.
Exactly. It really shows on the field. They're actually having fun, and that's what it's all about. At the end
I
of
was
the
gonna
day.
say, it looked like the Texas game. You just saw frustration, and just everybody was just annoyed, and that whole week after was very icy. It's a lot different now. It seems like everybody's a little more upbeat, a little more feeling more confident. Don't want to get too much into the game tonight just yet, because we're gonna get into that later. But I said on one of our OU Nightly hits for the TCU game that I thought the defense would play better initially. Easier opponents, they'll be invigorated with Ruffin, but I didn't know if it would continue. Do you guys think it's going to continue? Do you think the defense is actually, I don't want to say fixed, but do you think the defense is actually going to continue this?
It's on the come up. Like I said, we can't get our hopes too high because this Texas Tech offense is good. This isn't going to be a game where OU shuts them down and allows 20 under points. Texas Tech is going to put up some points. That's not what we're looking for. We're not looking for them to shut down the offense. Everyone is just kind of looking for that defense to contain Texas Tech. That's all they need to do, and let the offense take care of business. Texas Tech's defense not that good. You saw them struggling against a lot of top competition. This OU offense could have a big day.
Rome wasn't built in a day. I mean, there's no way you could, fix the defense. That's not how really anything in life works, especially sports. It's all about adjustments. It's all about figuring things out, especially, when the leader of your defense is fired, there's someone else stepping up. It's not just a quick fix. That's, like I said, that doesn't exist. But like I said, there's been a lot of improvement seen, and I think the defense will slowly improve and maybe become one of an elite, with the elite defenses that we're used to seeing from years past.
The bottom line is you just have to bend. You can't break.
As I was going to say, it's like nobody's asking them to be, Bama out there, LSU.
Yeah.
Just be adequate. Just get some stops, because this offense, as you guys all talked about, is unbelievable. And I feel like the offense, is unstoppable. I don't know how you keep that offense under 40.
I think right now the defense is respectable. I think that's a good word. They're a respectable defense. If they had been like that all season long, you'd be undefeated right now. Simple as that.
Easy.
For sure.
But you look at this and you look really moving down the line, you have to think, if they just keep this up, not necessarily similarly to where they're basically shutting people down.
Yeah.
You just have to make sure you maybe get 2 or 3 more stops every game. But if you do that, you almost guarantee a spot as an undefeated team. Now that's out the window because they weren't able to do that. But if you continue to have that kind of presence and hold people to a little bit less than you did previously, OU has a chance to not only make a run of the playoffs, they could win the whole thing.
Yeah, they got
potentially.
as good a shot as anybody. I mean, right now it kind of feels like Bama's here and everybody else is kind of jumbled up over here. Why can't OU be the number 2 and make up that ground?
I don't think it's
They're trying
that
to make
bold
it
to
there.
say.
They want to go there.
Yeah,
they don't want to be there. They don't want to be there. They want to be there.
I don't think it's that bold to say that if Oklahoma can stop the ball 2 or 3 more times with that offense.
Exactly. That's what I've been trying to say.
They couldn't
2 or 3
beat
more
anybody.
times all season?
Yes, period.
Sure. 2 or 3 stops
Sure, why not?
spread out over 5 games
Yep.
should win you some football games, I think.
We'll see.
There you go.
All righty, well, we'll take a break for now. Tori Johnson going to step in for Sam, but Sam will be back later on. Yeah, we'll be back. I was like, where are we back next segment? We are back next segment here from AT&T Jones Stadium in Lubbock, Texas. It's Jones AT&T Stadium. Son of a Lubbock, Texas. We'll be right back.
As Oklahoma and Texas Tech prepare to square off tonight in a primetime showdown, we look back at the last time these two teams faced off in Lubbock. October 22nd, 2016. On one sideline stood Patrick Mahomes, the man at the helm of a prolific Tech offense. On the other stood Baker Mayfield, the former Red Raider who had hosted Mahomes on his visit to Texas Tech. Before transferring to OU, Mayfield had become the first true freshman walk-on in FBS history to start a season opener at quarterback. But his career at Tech stalled out, and now in his return to Lubbock, Mayfield understandably had a chip on his shoulder. An offensive firefight was a reasonable expectation, but few could have predicted just how absurd the final box score would be. The two-star signal callers spent the night unleashing a relentless assault on both the scoreboard and the NCAA record books. Mahomes accounted for an unprecedented 819 yards of offense and 7 total touchdowns. The junior gunslinger threw a staggering 88 passes, completing 52 of them. 8 Red Raiders had at least 3 catches. Meanwhile, Mayfield only threw the ball 36 times, but his numbers were no less impressive. The future Heisman winner racked up 545 yards and 7 scores through the air. Much of the legwork on offense came from Joe Mixon, who accumulated a ridiculous 377 scrimmage yards and 5 touchdowns. When all was said and done, the Sooners outlasted the Red Raiders 66-59 in a game that took over 4 hours and saw each squad put up 854 yards of offense. At one point, the two teams combined to score touchdowns on 10 consecutive drives. As the Sooners and Red Raiders hit the field tonight, both teams are hoping that their defensive effort from that contest is not replicated. Oh, and to add one final footnote, both quarterbacks have graduated, but their rivalry has rolled over to the NFL. Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns will host Mahomes and his Kansas City Chiefs tomorrow afternoon. This marks the first time that they'll face off as professionals. But regardless of the outcome in that game, the two quarterbacks will always be inextricably linked in history. That bizarre October night at Jones AT&T Stadium won't soon be forgotten.
An absolute classic that game 2 years ago was. 66-59, the Sooners won. Some quick thoughts before we get into today's ball game. What are some memories from that? Just ridiculous.
I just remember thinking, last score wins, because neither of these defenses can stop the other team.
Yeah.
Just an absolute shootout.
What do you think, Tori?
Yeah, I thought it was just like really cool watching them go back and forth, because Tech is kind of similar to OU in the way that like they always have a really great offense and then a mediocre defense.
Yeah.
So it was just like they were just running through, everybody was like, Tech was running through OU's defense, OU was running through Tech's defense. It was just like offensive show, you know? So I am excited for this game because Tech's defense is a little bit better than normal, and OU's defense has been playing a little bit better than normal. So maybe it won't get too carried away.
It'll be
this
50.
year.
It'll be 56-49.
Yeah.
Every time I see that Patrick Mahomes had 734 yards passing in that game, I have to look at it and be like, is that a typo? 734 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. Wow, it's no surprise that he's tearing it up in the NFL if you just see
For sure.
what he's capable of.
You know, it almost felt like both teams lost. You know?
It was as little
really
satisfying of a win as you could ever have because defense played that bad.
Yeah, I mean, you walked away from that game, you're like, where do we go from here?
Well, this
do you put 2 losses on the record? I mean, and even then, honestly, you talk about such a great game it was and all of that, but at the end of the day, doesn't that game almost have sort of a negative impact? Because after that football game,
it was not,
the narrative of Big 12 defenses being trash kind of emerged as one of the prominent storylines in college football. I mean, it was always kind of talked about within the conference, right? Oh, we're not really pleased about the way we play defense in the conference. But after that one football game, I think it brought to the national eye what they perceive as bad defense in the Big 12, really because of that impressive offensive out.
So it's all Mahomes and Mayfield's fault, pretty much.
Yes, I would say.
All their fault.
Yeah, what was really cool about that, looking back on it to me, is I was reading, like, Mahomes wasn't in great health. Like, you could tell, they said that you could tell he was not at 100%. He threw, or he had over 700 yards. And then looking back, I guess I had forgotten this, but Samaje Perine did not play in that game.
Yeah.
We didn't have Rodney Anderson. It was Joe Mixon.
Yeah, he had like 400
263
total
yards.
17
Had that one-handed catch down the
running,
So
yeah,
sick.
and
Maybe-
over
maybe
400
Trey Sermon
yards
do something
total.
like that today.
Wild.
But yeah, that game unbelievable, and Mayfield Mahomes go down tomorrow. Browns Chiefs tomorrow. That's kind of funny how that
It's on the
works
same
out.
weekend, so
Yeah,
I thought
really-
that was really cool.
really kinda
Really
weird there.
coincidental.
Full circle.
As far as if we'll see that again tonight, I don't know, maybe. A lot of storylines to pick from here for this game. You know, there really is a lot to pick from.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start? Tori, you can go ahead and give me, what are you looking forward
Well,
to
we
today?
had kind of talked about this earlier. One cool storyline to me, we talked about how it's the return of Lincoln Riley to Tech, but another return is the return of Ruffin McNeil.
Yeah.
You
Kinda
know, and
gets
it's really
forgotten a
cool
little
to
bit.
think about too, because it's like our beloved Baker Mayfield, our Lincoln Riley, and now our new defensive coordinator all had spent a lot of time here. And Ruffin was a defensive coach for 10 years here. And cool fact, he was actually an interim head coach for one of their bowl games when he was here, and head coach of the Raiders, Cliff Kingsbury,
There you go.
KK, was his quarterback. And he just like rants and raves about how awesome he is. So, you know, like the defense has played better, but they've played better against poorer offenses. But I think Ruffin McNeil kind of has an edge going into this game because he's familiar with the team, familiar with Kingsbury, and he kind of maybe can predict what's going to happen and give the guys a better outlook going in.
Yep. Tibbs, Beatonbow,
Yeah,
Simmons.
it's weird.
The whole
It's weird.
coaching staff almost
It's
has
like
a tie
Texas
here.
Tech is like kind of Oklahoma's farm team.
Yeah.
A little bit. It's where it kind
Yeah,
of
they're all crossing over from
This
the
is
dark
double A.
side
It's like Baker just
into
opened
the
a
promised
vault.
land of Nopton.
They have
Yeah.
2 T's, so it's kind of like a double A perspective.
Yeah, there
I
you
don't know.
go.
Maybe I'm stretching there, but
Double T.
I'm going to go with something that I think is very important moving forward, something we don't really talk about. I mentioned earlier in the show that it seems like at any given moment this offense can have success, but we don't talk enough about time of possession. And of course, the past couple of games are starting to win that. And in a game like this where Texas Tech brings such a high-powered offense, you really have to make sure you're holding on to the football because obviously with the defense improving consistently, you trust in them a little bit more, but you never want to give an opportunity to an offense led by Cliff, led by Alan Bowman, so many talented receivers, to potentially get in the running and continue to energize the stadium. A stadium is going to be blacked out. They're going to want to see
gonna be
something
crazy in here,
happen.
yeah.
And you just get the
He is
sense
gonna
that
be
Cliff is
flying.
going to try and take some shots.
Yeah,
right?
he
I mean,
will.
he's tired of this, right? He wants a win. And I was talking to some Texas Tech students, like they want to storm the field more than anything ever.
Yeah.
So
That would be
That's a
terrifying.
little extreme.
they can't do
Yeah.
that if you have the
extreme.
ball for 40 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So I think that if Oklahoma can maintain time of possession today, overall, obviously that will help them win, but it will be
Yeah.
even more important to quieting the crowd and make sure they can easily get a guaranteed win.
Yeah.
And I mean, you talked about this offense, like the Texas Tech offense being good, and I agree they are, and Alan Bowman is great, you know, true freshman stud, but they're coming off that loss to Iowa State, and
Tough.
he had a bad game.
Yeah,
he
3
threw
picks.
3 picks, one was a pick 6, and their receivers played well, but their running backs had like 26 yards on 13 carries, you know? So, I mean, maybe coming off of that, that'll still carry over with them into this game, maybe hurt Bowman's confidence a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe we can blitz
I mean,
him
OU's
and
run
get him freaked
defense
out.
has looked good. So if they don't win the battle on the ground, it's going to be a tough day
Yeah.
for the Red Raiders. For me, I talked about this on Big Friday Sports yesterday. That game 2 years ago stemmed from the quarterback play. And we've got 2 good quarterbacks playing tonight.
Yeah, we really
You mentioned Bowman. He's done pretty well all season. Lost some time for that, I think it was a lung injury, was it?
Yep.
Yes.
Weird thing, but 68.4% completion percentage, 2,411 yards, 15 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That's compared to Kyler Murray, 28 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So he's no Kyler Murray out there. He's still a talented quarterback for this team.
He's
And
young too.
He's, like Tori said, true freshman. So OU has the 4th best offense in terms of points per game. Tech has the 10th. OU's defense is 61st. Tech's is 71st. So in terms of points per game and opponents' points per game, OU looks better on both sides of the ball in this game. And I think from the eye test too, we would kind of say, yeah, OU's the better team on both sides of the ball. But still, Tech could put up a lot of points. It might be a long day for the center defense.
And you have to take into account the atmosphere, you know. Growing up in Oklahoma as an OU fan, you hear how crazy the Red Raider fans are, how horrible they are, how just like, I mean, they throw tortillas and batteries at people. So, I mean, that's going to play into it a little bit
me
too.
calling me ducking for some tortillas and batteries for sure.
Yep.
It's going to be rowdy in here. We know that. That's what we had to say for it. But let's hear what coaches and players had to say throughout the week about this big matchup with Texas Tech.
You know, recapping the Kansas State game, you know, was like we said Saturday after, just a very, very complete performance all the way around. Going back and watching the tape, we like a lot of games that go that way. You know, obviously a lot of things went well, but there's, still a ton of issues, ton of things that we got to correct on all three sides. So we got a long ways to go as far as getting the execution to where we want it. But excited about our effort, excited about how physical we played.
Like I said, his whole motto is Fido. Forget it and drive on. So if something good happens, forget it and drive on. Something bad happens, forget it and drive on. It's on to the next play. And so, he's real organized. He doesn't like to waste time. He's real precise about the time that he has, and he doesn't want to waste it. And so, like I said, he's a calm, collected, organized person, great coach, and I love him to death.
It's really awesome to be a part of. I really feel like we can score at any time, and like I said this on Saturday, we haven't really been a team in the past that holds onto the ball and chews clock, but I feel like this year we can score in 1 minute and 30, and we can have 4 or 5 minute drives, and that's something that I've noticed, and so it's really awesome to be a part of this offense, and it's really exciting.
Each game we have to step up and show what we can do, because that's just how our offense rolls. We do a lot of throwing, a lot of running, so it kind of complements each other. So we have to do our job.
Looking at Texas Tech on tape, they have a pretty balanced offense. They balance up with the run and the pass. So it's definitely gonna be fun. Getting back to the spread offense, getting to defend them. A spread style offense again. So I'm looking forward to the challenge this week.
I actually almost went to Lubbock. I was, me and Coach Kingsbury pretty close. So I was always, a fan of him and what he can do. I know it's going to be a hostile environment. I know those kids, the type of kids that go to school, they love the tradition. They love to be out there and, those type of atmospheres with big games. Played there for baseball, and, they're pretty good at baseball, so it gets pretty rowdy. So I'm pretty, I know what to expect. I think it'll be fun.
When teams spread you out, obviously it's going to be more opportunities to, tackle in open space and stuff like that. So definitely it's an opportunity for us as a team, as a defense, to go out there and just show that improvement, stuff like that. So, I have 100% confidence in everybody on this defense that we'll be able to go out there and get the job done.
No doubt, we're going to have to be able to adjust to the, the pace and tempo these guys can play with. Obviously, how well they've thrown the ball all year, and again, they've been very efficient running it as well. So, they've moved the ball on anybody and everybody. And with a mind like Cliff's and the rest of that staff, you're going to get challenged all the way around. So, it will be a challenge. We kind of know we're going to get challenged every single week in this league, but I think our guys will be excited for the opportunity.
Okay, so that's what coach and players had to say throughout the week about this Texas Tech matchup. What did they say that stood out to you guys? Mal, we'll start with you.
For me, it was probably just what Grant Capatera said. He said, this offense is still a lot deeper than what you fans have seen, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, 12 guys caught a ball last week.
Exactly, and I asked him for a thing for Sooner Sports Bet. I said, hey Grant, 6 guys had at least 2 catches against Kansas State. What's that like to know there's so many weapons? He got a big grin on his face, and he was like, man, it is awesome. It is so cool that, if I can't get open, there's, a ton of other guys on the field that can catch the ball. I remember a few weeks ago, after CeeDee Lamb had a crazy one-handed catch, I asked Marquise Brown, I said, your buddy and your teammate has these crazy one-handed catches in these games. Does that make you is that competitive edge? You maybe want to try to get some one-hand catches? And he was like, no. If he's catching the ball, that is great. We just want to catch the ball. Yeah. And so just this attitude the offense has is just we're really good and we can be even better, and we know we can be even better and improve with each week, and we trust Kyler. It's just a good system for them right now. I think they're really confident and they're flowing and they look really good.
Yeah, speaking of improving each week, it seems like since Ruffin has come on, our defense has too, and I really loved what Kenneth Murray had to say. Fido. What is it? Forget it and drive on.
I love it, but I don't remember what it is.
I forgot what the I was for a second. I was like, wait, what?
Forget what?
Forget it and drive on. And, that's just that kind of you can't carry over a bad play mentality. And I'm going to throw some numbers at you. So, pre-Ruffin, we gave up 493 yards to Baylor. And then against Texas, we gave up 501 yards. Then Ruffin comes on. Against TCU, 275 yards. K-State, 245 yards. So, Sooner fans are thinking he's a savior. Ruffin's a savior. He's turning the defense around. But, back to today's game, as I said earlier, today is going to be a little bit more of a test for them.
Yeah. Well, they're going to need a little bit of a Fido situation to potentially against Texas Tech. That high-powered offense, they talk so much about the style of play that they're bringing. I wanted to touch on it a little bit later in the show, but we can't really talk enough about how this Texas Tech offense poses a similar kind of style of play that has caused problems for the Sooner defense in a past situation. So now that they're going back to this style of play, how will they respond? They faced two teams that really wanted to run the football, and then Sean Robinson coming in, he was not able to get the deep ball.
It's something they've done well,
Yeah.
even when the defense is playing poorly. They've always pretty much limited the run pretty well.
Exactly.
It's always kind of been the passing game that's really killed them.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, when you saw Michael Collins come in and they were able to throw the deep ball, it was effective. You know, Jalen Reagor down the sideline. Once they started finding him and Turpin out on the perimeter, that's what Texas Tech wants to do. And so how will they handle that? You'd have to think they'll be a little bit more prepared, especially because Ruffin has familiarity with what Texas Tech will try to do offensively. But at the end of the day, there's not enough to be said about how OU has struggled with the spread, especially the air raid. And that's exactly what Texas Tech is going to bring to the table, as they always do. This time around, after the whole 66-59, several shootouts, they've dealt with them. How do they handle the style of play this time around?
For sure, absolutely. And, you know, we kind of touched on it earlier. There seems to be a little more pep in the step.
Yeah.
They seem to kind of feel like, all right. You know, we figured it out. We're going to be okay. We've done this. We've done this exact thing. Lose early, play great in November, championship November. They haven't lost a November game since 2014. That's before any of us even went to school here.
Unbelievable.
Crazy. You know, November, this is winning time, and they've always played their best ball at this time of year. The confidence is there. I don't know if it's just because of the old or how they played recently. The confidence is definitely there. I think you guys agree.
I would say so. And the confidence will be added because of where we're at. It's another road game for the Sooners.
They love playing on the road.
And they continue that streak, the longest streak in the country of true road game wins. I believe it's up to 18 now. You might have to fact check me, but if I can remember correctly, 18 straight wins on the road.
For sure.
That is an unreal stat in its own right. So this team is full of unbelievable streaks. This one can continue because of that confidence that you mentioned. And I think that this opportunity to play in front of this rowdy crowd and come back to a place where so many of the players and coaches are familiar, confidence will only help, and it will really pay off at the end.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the offense's confidence growing. Like Troy said, the defenses as well. And it was funny, we almost kind of laughed at Kenneth Murray at the beginning of the season because he said over and over again, he used the phrase scratch the surface like 1,000 times. Every time we talked to him, he'd say, this defense has only scratched the surface of what it can do so far. And I think they're going beyond that surface, and I think they want to go even deeper. And I think that's what, I mean, this is the biggest test that we've seen Ruffin McNeil's defense face so far.
Sure.
So I think we will really see what Kenneth Murray's been talking about today.
Yeah, and like he said, it's championship November, so you got to stop scratching. It's it's November. You gotta get underneath it. You gotta get in the dirt there. So and you know, looking back on the Iowa State game versus Tech, they blitzed Bowman, and that flustered him, and he threw all those picks. And you know, I think OU needs to do that. They gotta move fast in this to keep up with this fast-paced offense. And they have those huge receivers too. So you know, maybe if they blitz Bowman, they can cover up those huge big receivers that they have. The cornerbacks can a little bit better. So
don't let the receivers get as much downfield too.
Looking forward to seeing what they can do here today.
All right, well, we've just scratched the surface on our Texas Tech preview. We still got more to talk about with this game tonight. It's gonna be crazy in here. But for now, we're gonna let the studio team handle it. Chloe and the rest of them are in Norman, back in our studios. Let them take away for a little bit, so we'll take a break, and then they will give you their thoughts on today's day, I guess, in college football.
November 3rd, 2007 is a day to remember in Sooner football history for a few reasons. OU played against Texas A&M. Don't you remember when we got to do that before the Aggies jumped ship to the SEC? Sam Bradford, DeMarco Murray, and Jermaine Gresham got to share the field together as well. Gresham is who should really be focused on though, because out of Sam Bradford's 5 touchdown passes, Jermaine caught 4 of them. This would tie the record for the most touchdown receptions in a game, which was set by Trent Smith in 2001 against Kansas. No surprise there. Now that wasn't the only record to be tied, as Bradford was now knotted up with Heupel and Jason White for the most touchdown passes in one game in the Sooner uniform. DeMarco Murray added a touchdown of his own to go along with 69 yards rushing. Nice. The defense also picked off the Aggies 2 different times and didn't allow scoring for the first 3 quarters. So I guess you could say that November 3rd, 2007 was another day to remember in Sooner football history.
Your host for today, here along with our analysts, Lauren Linville, Tevis Hollis, and Spencer Royce. We're going to kick things off talking the college football playoff rankings. Of course, y'all saw the rankings come out, and LSU was ranked number 3. Now, how they beat out Notre Dame on a bye week, I don't know. But, Lauren, what stood out to you?
Yeah, well, as you said, To be honest, this was a tough one for me because I really felt like they were pretty spot on with these rankings besides LSU, like you said. Sorry, I don't know what that thing was. But I think what stood out most to me was how high Florida was on these rankings. They are number 11, and they are 6-2 so far this season with significant losses to Kentucky and Georgia, a 36-17 loss to Georgia last week. That's a big loss to a team that's not looking as good as they did last year in the slightest. So again, you also have to look at UCF. I know Spencer's going to touch on this a little bit later, but why are they ahead of UCF here? UCF's undefeated.
I don't know.
And yes, obviously they've played better teams than UCF has. They had this very significant win against LSU, but if LSU happens to lose today to Bama, then I really you can't even consider them at all. I mean, at this point you can't either. But last week they had 3 turnovers against Georgia. They've had 12 so far this season. That's compared to Oklahoma 6, Alabama 6, and even UCF 6. So I feel like this defense doesn't look as good as you would expect. Georgia scored every single touchdown on third downs last week. So their defense isn't where it needs to be. Felipe Franks isn't where he needs to be, especially in the air. So I don't know why they're that high.
Mm-hmm. So what stood out to me is that the committee's not just going off the records. So here we go. A 1-loss LSU team is above an unbeaten Notre Dame team. A 2-loss Florida team is ahead of a 1-loss West Virginia team. Notre Dame deserves to be number 4. They barely beaten Ball State, Vanderbilt, Pittsburgh. The Irish still control their own destiny, but if they lose a game, it's not likely we'll see them in the Final Four. It shows the committee clearly thinks the SEC thinks that it's the best conference. Florida got hammered by Georgia last week and barely beat Vanderbilt the week before. West Virginia did not have a bad performance against Iowa State, but followed that up by completely dominated Baylor team. That is better than people think. Another less important example is the 3-loss Mississippi team is ahead of a couple of 2-loss teams, putting undefeated Central Florida team behind a 2-loss Florida team. Says early they won't be making the playoffs even if they remain undefeated. UCF until Thursday had yet to play a team with a winning record. Putting them at number 12 is a gift to them. Hopefully they will lose a game soon and we can quit talking about UCF. The committee is leaving plenty of room, if there's not an undefeated team, for the SEC to have 2 teams back in the Final Four, just like we saw last year. And people always say, they're biased. Well, the SEC is going to keep on being in the Final Four if another group doesn't come up and start playing as good as the SEC does.
I mean, yeah, they pretty much win the national title every single year.
Every single year.
And it's usually Alabama, a couple times Auburn, you got a couple LSU sprinkled in the
LSU right
past.
there.
Right. My biggest pet peeve, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. Yeah, Florida's not good. They're a decent football team, but they're not top 10. Everyone you just watch them play. They're not there like you said.
That LSU win.
You know who's not in the top 10 though is a team that's won 21 games in a row, which is something that no other team in college football is doing right now, is winning that many games in a row. Even going back to the last season. Yeah, UCF.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
2-loss Florida, as you said. Ohio State and Kentucky are all ahead of them. Kentucky, they have a very strong defense.
They do.
But they have a test today, and I'll be able to actually see how good they are. Now, 2-loss Florida, I already know how good they are, aside from the game that they pulled out against LSU, which I still don't know how that happened.
No, I know. I'm telling you.
They lost to the only good teams they played. Ohio State jumped them in the AP rankings, and their last game was a loss. They lost, had a bye, and then jumped UCF.
It was a bad loss, too.
Yeah, by nearly 30 points to Purdue. So Ohio State and Florida both lost the last games that they played on the field. UCF has scored at least 30 points in every single game and beat Temple 52-40 on Thursday. They put up massive numbers. They have not lost in 21 straight appearances, and they're still not in the top 10. The amount of disrespect that they get, although their strength of schedule is not as high as some other teams, is insane to me. That should not happen anymore. So UCF still being disrespected was the biggest shock.
Do you think that if UCF, somehow made it to the playoff, they put them
would
in,
actually do well?
would they beat? Do you think they could beat? They
Well,
come in
if
at
they-
4 and
I
Bama
mean,
comes in at 1. What do you think?
Well, that's what's tough for me is because last year they played a very good Auburn team who beat Alabama that year, and they actually played against them very well, and they ended up winning that game.
Right.
Remember? And this year, whatever team plays Alabama, in my opinion, is going to lose because that's the best college football team I've ever seen in my entire life. So putting them at number 4 is just basically everyone's like, oh, well, they didn't deserve to be there. I don't think any team deserves to be on the same field as Alabama this year. So that's
You don't think Oklahoma could come around and maybe pull it together?
come around and maybe pull it together?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, that's pretty easy to say.
I think the last 4 games we've beaten Alabama. So what do you think is the difference now?
They have a quarterback.
They have a ridiculous quarterback.
Kyler Murray's showing the same stats, in my opinion. Don't you think he's throwing too?
Kyler Murray is showing the exact same stats, and Tua hasn't thrown one pass in the fourth quarter yet. He hasn't thrown one pass in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, we're going to see on this LSU game if he's going to control himself in there.
Yeah, we will.
We'll see. We'll see.
All right, we're out of time for this segment, but stick around. We'll be back taking a closer look at the Alabama-LSU game down in Death Valley. Welcome back to Game Day U. Thanks for staying around as we analyze the Crimson Tide and the Tigers. Now, it's all over social media. We want Bama, we want Bama. There's a lot of teams that say this, but there's only a very few many that can say it, mean it, and actually have the chance to beat the Tide. Now, Alabama is opening as 14-point favorites on the road at LSU. Lauren, what's your take on this?
Well, last week I had LSU beating Alabama for the season. So I think this is ridiculous. I think it should be way closer than 2 touchdowns because I think that, you know, Bama has not played anyone significant like LSU is going to be, especially the defense as significant as LSU's. So I think that's going to be a little bit of struggle for the Crimson Tide. And, you know, Tua will run up the score. We've seen this, obviously, big time. But I don't think LSU is going to have a problem keeping up at least a little bit, and they're definitely not going to have a problem stopping them a little bit. They are ridiculous on this rushing defense especially, and so I think that Tua's going to be slinging the ball a lot more than they are going to rush the ball, but still, I think it's going to be a lot closer than this. LSU has, 4 significant wins, when Miami was good. There's still 2 in the country in defense, but they scored 33 on them, and then they had Auburn. They beat Auburn.
Auburn's pretty good.
Yeah, they were. They had we thought so at the beginning of the season. It was a significant win of the time is what I'm trying to say. And then Georgia and Mississippi State. So, and I think about last year, and I'm going to bring up Auburn again for a second, but how they lost to Auburn in Auburn, and they're about to go into Death Valley with a night game. This is a tough crowd to follow. So I just, I think it's going to be a lot closer. I think we might see it within 3 points probably.
Oh. So I don't have a problem with Alabama being 14 points up against LSU. I agree with Lauren that their 2 big wins early, Miami and Auburn, they're just not as impressive as they were at the beginning of the season. Beating Georgia was impressive, but I just question whether this LSU team can score against Alabama. As everyone knows, Alabama looks bulletproof this season. If I had to bet, I would always put my bet on Alabama. And many people from OU are concerned that if LSU wins, does that mean OU's out of the top 4? I don't believe so. I think OU will still have a chance if LSU wins. It might just change a couple other things around. That's it.
All right.
Well, yeah, I mean, if LSU wins today against Alabama, then I would assume they're going to keep Alabama in the top 4 just as they did last year, which means there will be 2 SEC teams most likely unless LSU slips up against somewhere else. Lauren, I'm going to go completely opposite to you. I think that Alabama should be a 21-point favorite.
Oh, okay.
Alabama is
Vegas Tua fan right here.
So much better than LSU. As you said, 2 of their 3 most impressive wins aren't impressive anymore. They're not.
No.
Miami's losing recruits every day. Auburn is not good. Mississippi State's defense has been much improved the last couple weeks. They have a crazy defensive run going on right now. But the only impressive win I see is Georgia, a Georgia team that is not nearly as good as it was last season. Tua has 500 more yards than Joe Burrow does on 71 less throws right now. They're allowing the exact same amount of points per game, but Bama's scoring 20 more points a game, and they're putting up 200 more yards a game than LSU is. I don't care how many points LSU scores, Alabama will score more, and on average they score 20 more a game. And they have played how many snaps? Do you know how many snaps Alabama has played this year on offense?
A lot.
1,200. They played 1,200 snaps. Do you know how many they've been behind for?
No idea.
3.
Thank you for your
Exactly 3. They're going to kill LSU today.
Yeah,
but they have not faced a defense near LSU.
Okay, I get that.
There is no defense that could possibly stop this offense.
We'll see, Spencer. We'll see.
Tua's going to show out, or he's just going to totally crumble in front of us. So
I don't think Tua won't crumble. I know that, but
all right. Let's talk the next subject. So the word we've been hearing since the Terrible Twos, disappointments. All right, an obvious one would be TCU, who has lost 5 of their last 6 games, including Kansas. Lauren, what do you think about this? Who's your disappointment of the week?
Well, I've said it pretty much every week. At the very beginning, I had Bryce Love as my Heisman pick, and I really thought, he's going to stay healthy, he's going to be fine. No. And so my biggest disappointment is Stanford. And obviously you can't help those injuries, but still, besides that, this Costello, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, it feels like, this connection that they have feels like a waste at this point because Stanford has looked terrible, and the Pac-12 in general has just looked terrible.
Oh, yeah.
And so, they had that big win over Oregon, but is even big anymore? That's what I have to think about because Oregon's terrible. So Stanford for sure is my worst. And I think a lot of it has to do with how bad the Pac-12 is in general. But also, I hate to say that Bryce Love being hurt is the biggest part of it, but it is. I mean, that's the biggest part of it.
Yeah.
So Stanford's my biggest disappointment. Goodness, I can't
There
speak
you go.
this morning.
It's too early for everyone
early.
to speak, right? So my biggest disappointment was the Ohio State Buckeyes. I mean, they were predicted to make the Final Four, and I'm going to say they're going to be lucky if they make the top 25 at the end of this year. They are crashing, and it kind of gives me a little joy to see them just go downhill. They're chugging. TCU lost to Ohio State. This made people think that TCU looked good. Then that TCU got plowed over by OU and then lost to Kansas. Purdue wiped the floor with Ohio State, then turned around and lost to a below-average Michigan State team, which is embarrassing. They lost to not really a good team at all. Urban Meyer's troubles are now visiting Ohio State. This is just the first part of the disaster. This is an ongoing problem they're having. So I'm going to grab some popcorn and I'm going to enjoy their show of disasters.
Well, I feel like a lot of it, again, has to do with, injury. Nick Bosa out. That's a big thing for them. Their defenses look terrible.
I mean, yeah, you better hope they don't actually pull out some wins in their last games because, right now they're
they're
a top 25 team. I think they're a top 10 team. If they win out, they have a good shot at being in the playoffs.
Beating Michigan's their biggest battle right now.
Yeah, this is their biggest game left.
We'll see.
But my biggest disappointment this year, my mom would probably say it's me.
All right,
but,
who's it going to be?
I think that it's the
How come I saw that
Wisconsin
coming?
Badgers.
Who's number 2?
Last year, the Wisconsin Badgers went 13-1. A lot of people thought they might have a chance to make the playoff. They obviously were undefeated until the Big Ten title game, where Ohio State kind of just capped them pretty bad. They took them out. But right now, they've lost 2 of their last 3. They're 6-3 overall, and their top tier, I put that in quotes, their defense is allowing over 20 points a game right now, and they might not even make the Big Ten title game in that really weak Big Ten West side. Obviously, the Big Ten East is far superior. So Wisconsin, to me, has just not looked, after they got that first loss, and you know that if Wisconsin gets a loss, they're not going to make the playoffs.
Right.
So they knew at that point that their season was most likely over as far as college football playoff goes. So I feel like they kind of just let that get to them, and they've just been complacent the entire season. They have not looked nearly as good on the defensive end. And that has showed the holes that they have on offense outside of their running game, which is having a quarterback that legitimately can't really throw the ball past 20 yards.
Right.
So Wisconsin has really disappointed me this year, especially with all that defensive and offensive line talent that you have.
Remember how Wisconsin and Washington came in as top 10? Everybody was like, what? And they proved that they didn't deserve it.
You get a couple of those a year.
Yeah, you do.
Well, hey, you're not wrong. While none of these teams have a chance making the playoffs, there are University of Central Florida may have a chance, and then we've got some 2-loss teams. So, Lauren, who do you think's more likely to make the playoffs, UCF or one of these teams with 2 losses under their belt?
Well, this question's a little tough for me because it's coming, thinking about the College Football Playoff Committee, I think that they might consider a 2-loss team, but in my opinion, I think that's ridiculous. I think UCF for sure should go in over a 2-loss team because if you have if Oklahoma loses again, LSU loses again, Georgia loses again, if Michigan loses again, why should they get in over UCF, who's undefeated? I understand that they have tougher schedules, but their resume is going to be way worse. So in the end, I think that you have to look at UCF as an actual contender here. And I think, if LSU loses today, if Georgia loses again, end of discussion. You cannot even consider them. So
you hope.
You would hope, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think that the committee might agree with that, but in my opinion, it should be UCF over a 2-loss team. I mean, I would hate to see a 2-loss team in over an undefeated team.
See, I am opposite. I think the committee's first top 25 released that question for certain. They place a 2-loss Florida above UCF. If any of the undefeated teams, UCF, they're going to probably make the playoffs before UCF because they have a better resume than Florida. If any of the top 7 teams lose another game, they will probably be placed above UCF. If Washington State and or Kentucky lose another game, UCF would probably pass them in that instance, but that isn't necessarily a given. An interesting question would be if both UCF and West Virginia go undefeated from here, where would the committee keep UCF above West Virginia? I'm glad I won't have to watch UCF get humiliated, though, if they make the playoffs, because they would just be absolutely out of their league and not know what to do if that happened to them. I just feel like they've played teams that aren't really as strong and ready to fight as other teams.
I mean, yeah, you can't really tell until they get there. And, I mean, they did win their New York Six Bowl game last year, which is the biggest stage outside of the playoff. So I would like to believe that they'd be up for the challenge and they would be up for the game. But as much as it pains me to say this, I think that a 2-loss team is much more likely to make the playoff than UCF. Even though I don't agree with it, I think that's what will happen. I already mentioned that Ohio State lost by basically 30 points their previous game and still jumped them in the AP poll, and they're ranked ahead of them in the college football playoff rankings to start the season. And they just don't get any respect. A 2-loss SEC team has a much better chance than a UCF team does. And hey, I mean, there's really nothing you can do about that. That's just the committee's way of viewing things, and they go by strength of schedule and strength of record way more than just the eye test, even though UCF has done nothing but prove themselves time and time again. I mean, I've seen 2-loss teams win national titles, so
that's true.
It can happen, and they'll opt for that way before they opt for the Golden Knights, which, sad, ripped my heart out.
I was going to say, I didn't think you were going that way with it, but okay.
Well, what about this game this weekend, OU versus Tech? What's y'all take on that?
Oh, I'm excited. I think we're going to crush them, which I always think that OU is going to crush something. But I'm thinking we're going to crush Texas Tech, and we'll see what happens, though.
Yeah, I think it'll be nothing like 2016.
No, never.
I'm going to save my score prediction for later.
Oh, keep it in. Yeah, definitely.
All right, guys. Well, stay tuned and hear what the remote team has to say next about Tech.
Back into Lubbock, Texas, Jones A&T Stadium. I got the name right that time. Let's go. It is still super windy here in Lubbock.
Yep, it's a bad day to have long hair.
Yeah, it is.
I know, it's really tough.
Colin knows about that, yeah.
Yeah, the wind is just insane today. I don't know if it'll go away in the night or what is up with that.
I thought we left Oklahoma where the wind comes sweeping in the plane.
Not doing my orange juice earlier. I'm so upset about that.
It was difficult to see you go through that.
It was a stressful time.
I'm glad you survived, really. I didn't have my hair cut either, so I'm pretty bummed.
Everything's just out of whack right now. So
this is gonna be a wacky game too. So we'll see how this goes.
It's empty right now. Compost Storm's gonna be full of Raiders and tortillas here in just a few hours or so. I guess more than a few hours. The game's not till 7. Yeah. Whatever. You get the idea.
Got some time.
It's pretty early. Anyway, okay. So getting more back on track here into the game that's actually gonna happen here tonight.
Yeah.
Oklahoma, Texas Tech. Let's scout out the Raiders a little bit. What are we looking for?
What do you think?
Anybody can start that wants to.
Okay, well,
take it away, Tori.
Their second best receiver is Jadion High, and he is actually just in the last couple days been nominated for the Burlsworth. He was former walk-on, so I mean Baker won that award.
Yeah, Baker knows something about that one.
So he was nominated for that. He has 46 catches for 608 yards, and he is 11th in the Big 12 for yards per game, and he's averaging 76 yards per game. So they have a really strong receiving core, and this is just one of their weapons. I know Madeline's going to talk about another one here in a minute. Yeah. But he's an impact player for sure. I mean, they're going to have to lock down these receivers, but it's all kind of dependent on Bowman. Back to him. You know, he's had a bad last couple of games. He's had 3 interceptions in the previous 2 games that he's played in. So, I mean, I kind of hope he carries it over. You know, I'd like to see some of our guys get interceptions and get a pick 6, and yeah, I'd like to see them take over their offense. But
yeah, Bowman seems to be going through a bit of a slump, but his numbers are still pretty good. And like you said, Tori, Jadion High, great receiver. Their leading receiver is actually Antoine Wesley, almost 1,000 yards on the season. He is 6'3", so he's a tall guy. Yeah. And you talk about T.J. Vasher. He is 6'6", and he's their, I think, 3rd leading receiver on this team. I mean, we've seen OU struggle against some bigger receivers. Yep. I mean, their secondary,
bigger cornerbacks
their secondary. The problem with them,
no, Norwood and Brown are not.
They're athletic
guys.
They're athletic and they're fast. but they're not very tall. They're kind of shorter guys. So I'm really interested to see against Vasher specifically how they're going to match up.
And that's why TJ Vasher makes Collins impact players this week.
This unofficial segment that we have.
Yeah, it's not really official, but I'm pushing for it. TJ Vasher, 6'6", you mentioned it. He's a big, tall receiver, but why I'm pointing out him specifically, even though you said he's in the top 3, he's not necessarily number 1. I look to the Texas game. Against Texas, Colin Johnson, a 6'6" receiver, gave them absolute fits.
Yeah, he had a day.
Now, obviously, Colin Johnson's one of the best receivers in the Big 12 and potentially in the country. He's a guy that's looking at potentially an NFL future. But TJ Vasher, knowing the potential success that really Colin Johnson had the whole game that he could have, you have to expect that Cliff Kingsbury's going to try and get him the football because it's a mismatch nightmare for Trey Brown out there on the edge. You have to assume that Trey Brown's going to be that guy because that's who they match up against, Colin Johnson, for the most part. So if TJ Vasher is able to get up and get the football, it just spells trouble. The other impact player, going to the defensive side, Dakota Allen. Last chance you, baby. Flip it right around. He's having a great season. He's a great player, a great young man. He's a leader on this team. I think looking at him, obviously this stage is going to be absolutely nuts. But Dakota Allen, just the kind of guy that he is, he has to keep this defense in check. The fans are going to be rowdy every single time OU's offense is on the field.
Nuts in here.
Dakota Allen not only has to be the best, really the best player defensively for the Red Raiders, and he's been that for the large part this season. He has to be the guy to make sure they're all in check because it's very easy to get off of your P's and Q's when you can't hear, right? So Dakota Allen being that Mike backer, being the guy that's making all the calls, making sure the calls are coming in correctly from the DC. It's up to Dakota Allen to make sure to keep his guys in check, make sure that they're focused and ready to stop this OU offense. Can they do that? I don't know. It's up to Dakota Allen to try and do that.
For sure. So, we talked about, the receiving core, the Texas Tech's offense is, what it kind of usually is. They like to score points, like to play the air raid a little bit. What are we thinking on a broad level, how the defense is going to do today? Do you think they regress back to what they might have been? Do you think they continue to improve and look better? What are we thinking? Just general thoughts. How is the defense going to play today?
It's difficult for me to sit here and tell you that they're going to hold them to 14 points, right? I mean, you don't want to put that chip on the table and just bet on it immediately. I will say this, and I said it earlier in the show, and I'll continue to say it. All you need is a couple more stops in every game, and you suddenly put your offense in a position.
Per game. Okay.
Yes.
I get it.
Yes.
Just let Kyler have the ball a few more times than Bowman has.
Here's the thing. You know what? Let's cut it out. If I make that same statement, even though it was a messed up sentence, they get 2 or 3 stops the whole season. The whole season. 1 stop wins Texas.
Yeah.
1 stop wins Georgia in the Rose Bowl. Think about it. 2 or 3 stops, really at the end of the year, 2 or 3 stops all year. I will back that messed up sentence all the way. Because if you really think about it, it's a good point. They just need 1 or 2 stops the whole year. But this time around,
wind's getting real.
The wind is
You're
getting
getting fired up.
Yeah.
The wind's like, let's go.
It's blowing me towards the camera. I'm starting to feel it a little bit. Even though we're all on kind of low E right now. It's all about making sure the defense just does a little bit better continuously. And that doesn't necessarily have to be 245 yards total, right? It just has to be, let's call it 28 points. 30-something points given up because you know your offense can get you 40.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Tech's running game, they got 2 talented guys, Tayshawn Henry and DeMarcus Felton. Almost 600 combined yards from the 2, 13 touchdowns. Like we said earlier, OU's defense has looked pretty good against the run so far this season, especially these last few games. Look at last week, Kansas State. They held Alex Barnes to under 40 yards, I think, and he was averaging like 150-something yards per game. So, I mean, they made him look not very good. They looked good themselves. But, I mean, when it comes to Bowman and Vasher and Wesley and High, that worries me a little bit if I'm OU's defense. They haven't looked that good, even though they did a little bit last week. They haven't looked that good in the air. I don't know. I think we could see a game of 2 years ago a little bit.
I mean, it would be fun to watch, but like you said, like everybody's going to keep talking about how much the Big 12 defense sucks. So, I mean, I want to see our defense do well. Like, I really do. But I'm not in a position where I think that I can say, like, oh, I think they're going to come out here and they're going to put on a show. And I don't feel like I'm in a position where I can say, oh, I think they're going to fold under the pressure. I'm just like, oh, I'm excited to see what happens.
Really don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I don't at all.
In a lot of ways,
And like I was saying earlier, the last time we were on, like, want them to play fast. Like, I want them to get up in Bowman's face, blitz him, and I want the quarterbacks to be able to try to get good coverage on these big, huge receivers, kind of mess him up. I mean, Iowa State did that, and it worked out for them, so I'm really hopeful for this defense.
We haven't seen them against a good quarterback and good wide receiver since Texas, when obviously they lost.
And cut Bowman a break, everybody. He's on one lung. I mean, oh my
He's
Lord.
one lunging it out
He's
there.
a freshman on one lung? Impressive.
Yeah, and you saw,
Get on
you know how
airplanes.
good Bowman is, because the one game, I don't know how many starts he missed, but he didn't start against TCU. I know that.
Yeah.
That offense looked bad
Yeah,
against
it
TCU.
did.
How many? I think they had 17 points in that game. That's not what we're used to seeing from
The
Texas
defense,
Tech.
They squeaked out a win, though.
They won that game still.
Yeah.
17-14.
Yeah, so give a little credit to Texas Tech, and a lot more. Alan Bowman's going to be a good one for sure. I think we all can see that.
Yeah, he is really great.
Is there any fear about the offense at all? Is there any like
Good question.
concern at all? Is there anything you can even kind of pick at?
In a word, no. So I feel like I can overanalyze this, but at the end of the day, no. I mean, they're too good. They're too good.
I don't know if, you know, a lot of times people talk about, the atmosphere. You know, I've never been to a game here. I've never been to a night game here then, which, you know, is hyped up a lot. So I don't know if that pressure's going to get to Kyler Murray and maybe some of the other guys. I mean, I feel like if I was a quarterback and there was people throwing tortillas at me, I would be a little shook up. So I don't know, I might make some bad throws, a couple interceptions. You know, it'll be interesting to see how Kyler performs in probably his toughest environment yet.
It just seems every time we think like maybe Kyler will feel it a little bit.
He's
he
proved
just
us
laughs on
wrong.
his face.
He's proved us wrong every time, but
He's
you know,
just
it's interesting
smooth,
to see.
you know? He just like, I don't even know. It's just the complete opposite of Baker, but he's still great, you know? It's just like completely different egos going on here.
Yeah, so we'll see if the offense can continue to roll. I think this might be a chance that where Kyler can put up some of his most gaudy numbers so
I
far.
want Kyler to break Baker's 7 TD record
I think he
from
might,
2 years
and
ago
the reason I think he might is
that's
not
bold.
even.
I want him to do it.
Texas defense is not that good, obviously, but not even trying to what's the word I'm looking for?
Dismiss?
Here? Sure, the defense that much. It's more just that I think Texas offense is going to score points. That's going to keep Kyler in the game longer.
Yeah.
Kyler hasn't been playing in the fourth quarter the last couple of games because they've been so ugly. This could be a game where he goes crazy on the statistics and close that gap with Tua as much as he possibly can in that Heisman race.
Really, you bring up a great point that we really need to touch on. This is kind of a moment for Kyler Murray to continue to catch up to Tua. I mean, look, Texas Tech defense, it's improving. On the other end of things, it's getting better and better. But Kyler has a chance to go out there against an improving defense and continue to catch up to Tua, which he did a lot of last week. And if he can do something similar to that on this stage, you have to think that the voters will start taking him a little more seriously as potentially a front runner. I don't know. We'll see.
And something to kind of add on to that, in the TCU Tech game, Tech's defense looked better than the Ohio State's defense did against TCU. So, I mean, that's something to look at, too. I mean, they're not terrible, so they're getting better, just like OU is.
Absolutely. You know, so going to be interesting to see for sure. We're going to have to do a lot to try and steal the spotlight a little bit. You know, LSU, Alabama is tonight, so that's Tua's big coming out game. Kyle wants to steal a little bit of that spotlight away. He's going to need that. Another big game today in the Big 12. One of the biggest games in the Big 12 all year is West Virginia and Texas. That's this afternoon. We're all going to be watching that one. That's very, very interesting. What are we looking at in this game? A game that very well could determine who plays probably Oklahoma in the Big 12 title game, unless you guys have a different opinion. What are we thinking here? West Virginia, Texas, interesting game. It's in Austin. What are we thinking?
Let's throw it to our resident West Virginia expert, Madeline Roberts.
Aw, thank you.
Will Greer's biggest fan.
That's what I was going to start with, Tori. Will Greer. Obviously, he was my Heisman pick at the end of the season.
That's
Is that going to happen? It's unlikely.
I'm a little mad that none of us picked Kyler, and he's like second in the running.
We were trying not to be homers. I mean, you know.
Yeah,
I'm proud of us.
Trace McSorley. If they let him throw against Ohio State, we'd be talking about Trace McSorley and Penn State right now.
We wouldn't.
Just stop by. It's okay.
Anyway, Will Greer, obviously, you know, there's better quarterbacks. He's still really talented.
Yep.
And here's my thing. Texas beat OU mainly because Kyler made 2 big mistakes. He threw that interception, and then bigger mistake, he fumbled on, what was it, OU's own 30 or 25? I mean, it was back in their territory where he fumbled and they scored. So that was the pretty much only game this season where Kyler really didn't have time to throw. And yes, he's good at scrambling. We've seen that Baker-like quality in him. He's good at making something out of nothing. Obviously, he can use his feet. But they pressured him in such a way that he made those mistakes. So if they can do the same thing to Will Greer, because Will Greer is by far the best part of that West Virginia offense.
Yeah.
And yeah, Kyler's the best part of OU's, but they also have a lot of talented receivers. I'm not discounting David Souls or any of the other talented receivers, but he really makes that offense go. His arm makes the offense go. So if the Texas defense can put the pressure on him that they put on Oklahoma and Kyler Murray, Texas has a chance to win this game.
You know, my concern with West Virginia in this game is that they looked really good and they went to Ames and we're going to look lost and that team looked lost. And this game's in Austin. I mean, I expect it to be rowdy. I don't know. Texas fans are kind of weird on what game they get up for sometimes, but I expect it to be loud in there. He didn't handle Ames very well, and maybe he learned from it. Maybe he's ready to go, but that's something I'm keeping an eye on a little bit.
I think you have a great point. It's in Austin, and typically I think there's, like you said, it's not really a scenario where the fans are too rowdy, but everything that happens there seems to be primed for overreaction, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's big. There's 100,000 people in
Texas is back, and then they lose to Kansas, and Notre Dame has a terrible season, but in that stage, it was one of the greatest games apparently anyone had ever seen.
When they're wearing the burnt orange, everything gets boosted.
The thing is, though, we talk about overreaction. This game does have massive implications, and I think I want to see how Texas handles that. Because to be quite honest,
coming off they laid an egg against Oklahoma State.
I understand that I've been on this set several times, and my TCU pick at the beginning of the year was bad. But at the same time, I will stand by what I said earlier as well. Texas isn't good, in my opinion. I don't think they're that good of a football team.
They're weird.
I think that this has the opportunity to expose that if West Virginia actually gets up for the game. It's not really to me about the fans or Texas, the players. I think it's about how West Virginia responds to the environment, and if they do, I think they have a chance to really rout it.
Yeah, kind of like what you said, massive implications from this game. So it's hard to kind of gauge it, because it is in Austin, and Texas beat OU, so I'd like to, kind of say Texas is good, but also at the same time, Texas sucks.
Yeah, I don't think
down always.
Yeah.
But
we'll see.
West Virginia's playing good football, so I don't really know. I'm kind of like what I said about our defense. I don't know how that's going to go for them. I don't know how that game's going to go for West Virginia, Texas, but I'm excited to see the outcome. And yeah, I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, another part of this, by the numbers, West Virginia's defense is so much better than OU's. Even accounting for the past couple of games where OU's defense looked pretty good.
Yeah.
West Virginia's is just so much better. So if you ask me to pick who's going to win that game, I say West Virginia, but I'm not super confident in the answer, and I think it'll be a close one either way.
I'm taking West Virginia.
Yeah. You want to make a pick on it real quick?
I'll pick West Virginia.
So Texas is going to win then.
Yeah.
Confidence.
Real quick.
We like to jinx on this show.
Real quick, so we got to get out and get back to the student team for a little bit. But do you think, so y'all take West Virginia, does that mean y'all think West Virginia's going to get to Arlington?
I think they're going to get
Yeah.
I do.
I'd say beat Texas,
I said that at the beginning of the season, and I still think it'll happen. I think we'll get OU, West Virginia back-to-back, which is annoying, but I think it's going to happen.
But I love your pick.
I'll be the only one then on the Iowa State Cyclone train. Not many realize the Iowa State Cyclones control their own destiny. They already beat West Virginia. Also, they already played OU. That's out of the way already.
Yeah.
Schedule is very winnable the rest of the way. They do have to play Texas. That could be tough. We don't know how good they are.
Yep.
Other than that, Kansas, Baylor, K-State.
If you're OU, which of the three teams do you want to play? Do you want to rematch
Texas.
against
You want
Texas?
Texas.
Do you want to play West Virginia back-to-back? Do you want to try Iowa State again? Because they were a fairly
I
easy
think you would
win.
want Texas more than anything. Iowa State's different than when OU played them. It's not the same. Brock
I mean,
Purdy,
they gave OU
different team.
fits,
Yeah, and it was
too,
close
so-
already. They're a different team too. Matt Campbell, that would be frightening if you're an Oklahoma Sooners fan for sure.
We'll see.
All right, we'll hop out of here. Tori, thank you so much. Sam will be back for our call-outs and all that good
Sorry.
stuff later. I didn't say it that time. Tori said it. Don't get mad at me, Sam. We'll get back to Steer Team, Chloe, and all of them. I'm not sure what they're talking about next block, but they'll have something good for you. I was going to preview it, but I don't know what it is. So they'll go on with
It'll be
something
good.
It'll be good.
Welcome back to the studio here on GamedayU. I'm Chloe Sparks, and it's time to recognize this week's NFL Sooner standout. With a nod to Jordan Evans, who helped his Bengals to victory with an interception, this week's Sooner standout is Adrian Peterson. Peterson earns the award for the third time this year after a huge performance last Sunday against the New York Giants. The 33-year-old exploded for 149 yards on the ground in the Redskins' victory. After an early receiving touchdown, Peterson iced the game with a 64-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter. The run was Peterson's longest since 2015 and gave him a firm hold on this week's Sooner Standout nomination.
You gotta love him turning back the clock.
Yeah. Well, we've discussed upsets, the Alpha Alabama disappointments, and possibilities. But let's go ahead and talk concisely college football playoff predictions. All right, I'm going to throw this one over to you, Lauren. Who you got?
Okay, well, I'm only changing one team this week from who I had last week, and I think it might surprise a little bit of you. But for my first team, I'm going with the very obvious Alabama. Even if they lose to LSU today, which I think they might, I'll get into it a little bit more later, I think that there's no way that you don't put them in. Tua Tagovailoa will be the Heisman winner, in my opinion.
Woo!
Yeah, I really think so. Next, I am going with Clemson. Clemson is 8-0 so far this season, and they have a pretty easy remaining schedule, so I think that they will for sure be in. They'll be undefeated. And then so as far as that, they have the number 3 defense in the country as well. So I think that's an easy pick for me for Clemson. Next, I'm going with Notre Dame. Still, same thing as last week. I think that if you're going to leave out any Power 5 team, it's for sure the Pac-12. So why not put in Notre Dame in this since they're undefeated again? And then last, I've got Michigan. Michigan over Oklahoma as I had before. I'm pretty confident that they might beat Ohio State at the end of this season. And so I think that they should go in over Oklahoma at this point, especially if they beat Ohio State. So it was hard for me to not put Oklahoma in.
I have to agree with that.
But I really think that with their defense, I just think it's hard to believe that you couldn't put them in if they beat Ohio State.
Yeah, agreed.
All right,
Okay.
you have it.
I'm going to go my Final Four, Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Oklahoma. I choose Alabama because I think they have an offense that might be the best in the nation. Tua Tagovailoa is changing the way offense is played in the SEC. I think that's because the Big 12 QBs he's just like a Big 12 QB. Now they have one that's changing the game for the SEC, so we might see more of those coming to them. And the defense also might be the best in the nation. So they are just dominating, making those plays, getting those balls back. And now I want to move to Clemson. I don't think the Tigers are as complete a team as Alabama, but they have the easiest schedule of any possible contenders for the Final Four. The toughest game before the playoffs is when they travel to Boston College next week. That's going to be an exciting game. The Tigers were lucky to beat Texas A&M and Syracuse. Their schedule is very weak, and that would hurt them if they lost a game. I think the only way Clemson makes the playoffs if they are undefeated. I think they would be undefeated and make the Final Four, so let's see what happens. And my next one is Notre Dame. Like Clemson, doesn't have the luxury of losing a game this late in the season and still making the playoffs. Notre Dame has tough games against Syracuse and Northwestern. They have made easier games against Florida State and USC. I think the Irish will win their remaining games and make the Final Four. They will clearly be the worst of the Final Four teams, but there's no way they'll leave them out. Now to Oklahoma. Oklahoma, my final pick is the Sooners. The season is almost a carbon copy of last year. There's one game where Oklahoma didn't show up, Texas, but we won't talk about that. I think they rolled. The Sooners are just going to finish like they did last year, and I am excited. Their defense is stepping up to the game. Their offense is there. It's strong. And Oklahoma's always my pick for everything. So let me just be honest about that one.
That Penn State-Michigan game will be huge today for that pick. And
Absolutely.
if Penn State can pull up that upset against Michigan, then Oklahoma is right there.
Is right in there.
Well, my number one team, to nobody's surprise, as all of you had it as well, is the Alabama Crimson Tide, the best team in college football, the best college football team so far I've ever seen in my entire life. They have the most efficient offense and the second most efficient defense in all of college football, and Tua still leads in QBR despite not throwing one single pass in fourth quarter of this season. They have the toughest test this week against LSU, so if they win this game, they're a no-doubter, and I think they're a no-doubter. I don't think anybody's going to beat them. Moving on to Clemson as my number 2 team. Since nearly losing to Syracuse, they've really just actually come into their own. They've outscored opponents 163-20 in their last 3 games. They have an absolute cakewalk to the playoff, no remaining issues, averaging 44 a game, really only allowing 13 points a game. ETN is an absolute dog, over 9 yards per carry, over 10 plus rushing touchdowns, so just keep on adding to that total. Keep doing it, keep killing it. And then I'm going to go with Notre Dame at number 3. They have Northwestern, Syracuse left, and that's their toughest left on the remaining schedule, which is a big yikes in my opinion. Ian Book is good enough to guide them to an undefeated regular season. They have to end the year with USC, who's been laughable this year, but that might end up being your best hope at the end of the year at the last game. They have a great running game, very solid defense. I think Clemson would kill them though, so that's why I'm going to have them at 3 instead of 2, and they have that clout with college football committee, so they're going to always be in the discussion if they go undefeated, regardless of the fact they don't have a conference title game. And I don't think they deserve to be there, but they will be. And then my 4th team, let's go, UCF. 21 consecutive wins, man. They deserve this. The disrespect is always going to be unreal. I don't know how many of the top 5 teams right now they could beat, but I do think they deserve the chance. I think they're as good as anybody on the offensive end of the ball. They have the 5th ranked offense and the 15th ranked defense. Regardless of what you say about their strength of schedule and competition thus far, they deserve a shot.
I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be so fun to see them in there. But, I mean, who knows? I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I like your Michigan pick, and I like your OU pick. Obviously, I love your OU pick. I would love for that to happen.
All the way.
But I just don't see how you can look at what's happened so far and just rule out a team that hasn't lost even dating back to last season. And I mean, of course, you can make arguments that LSU right now is a better team than UCF, and there are many teams in the top 10 that are better than UCF on paper as far as recruiting and just what they have on their roster. But just the fact that they have not lost yet, they haven't given an inch. Yes, they've had close games, but many teams have. In fact, most teams slip up once, as you said. Both teams that are in your Final Four, your 4th team, has both lost, and they've slipped up, which maybe the teams that they played against were tougher, but UCF has not done that yet, and that is the mark of a good team. You win the games that you're supposed to, no matter what. So that's why I stuck with UCF this week.
All right, good to see.
Good point. I enjoyed it. I guess I can kind of agree with that, but not all the way. Not all the way yet.
Yeah, you definitely say UCF with a lot of confidence, which I don't know if it should have all that confidence, but I do agree with what you said about Bama. It is a very strong team this year. And my sister went there, so we're always rooting for the Tide.
Come on.
Just the fact that they have the best offense in college football, which they've never had that before. I think last year their offensive efficiency was like an 88.3, and this year it is a 99.
Okay, I'm going to throw this at you. Do you think that SEC's offense is looking like a Big 12 offense right now, and that's why you think they're so good?
I think that they look so good because they actually gave the ball to a quarterback who can take the top off of a defense rather than ground and pound, which is what Alabama's been so good with, having dual threat quarterbacks and just running the ball, relying on your defense that has top 10 picks in it every single year. So now that you have an offense that can mirror that defense and be just as good on opposite sides of the ball, there's absolutely no stopping the train that is Alabama. And if you have the number 1 ranked offense, the number 2 ranked defense, who's going to beat you?
Exactly.
You're good.
As
But
Spencer
come
likes
on,
to
I want to
say,
see a fight.
Alabama would only lose
I would
to
love,
Alabama.
I would love to see a fight, but I don't think you're going to get one.
A clean fight, like back and forth. I want to see that happen.
Well, what
But
about
it's gonna
Alabama's strength of schedule? What about that?
I don't think they have that hard
Well,
of schedule.
if they weren't Alabama and it was another team playing those teams, you wouldn't talk about the strength of schedule. It's just because they're so far above everybody else, you think that they have to play a number 2 or number 3 ranked team every week because that's what they deserve. But as far as their actual schedule goes, they make every other team look so bad. Their on-paper resume is never going to be nearly as good as someone who's in these dogfights every week.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll see that in the playoff because it's going to happen. So
It's going to be exciting. Yeah. I'm excited.
All right, well, what about how weak the ACC is in Clemson?
The ACC is obviously super weak. I mean, we've known the ACC is weak all year. The ACC and the Pac-12 have been the 2 weakest Power 5 conferences, in my opinion. I think the Big Ten and the SEC are far ahead of the other 3, and I have the Big 12 somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And the ACC, Clemson doesn't have to play any hard teams the entire season. Syracuse gave them fits last year, and they gave them fits this year, but they got past that game, and now they look forward to the ACC title game where they're not going to play a very good team there either. So they're just so far above everyone else in their conference that it doesn't really even matter. And they're a good football team. Like I said, they've outscored their opponents 163-20 in their last.
Yeah, you can't discredit
Clemson
at all because of that. So
Yeah.
All right, well, you heard it here first. Stay connected for the remote team coming down from Lubbock here in a second. Thank you.
Back inside Jones AT&T Stadium, Lubbock, Texas. Getting closer to game time, still gotta wait till tonight. We got our tortillas.
Oh!
We are ready. We are ready to go.
Did everyone wash their hands before you touch the tortillas?
Yes.
You guys know how the
I think it's
students
more you
bring
need to
these
wash
in,
them
right?
after you touch them.
Exactly. We're in Lubbock. We got to be careful. You never know what could be flying around here in the atmosphere.
We talk a lot about the tradition. We don't talk enough about how they sneak these things in. It's a little gross.
Yeah.
I don't think we should, too.
Let's stay away. Let's stay away. And with that, we welcome Sam back. How you doing, buddy? We'll start with
Sam.
you. We're at the end of the show. We all know what that means. All that stuff that Joe loves that we miss him now. He's not here. But
Joe, this tortilla is for you.
Yeah, we have
tortillas for Joe. We
yes.
have 5 tortillas.
I wish we had thought of that before.
That's literally the reason why we did it.
I could've drawn
That's
Joe
Joe right
on
there.
This is Joe
rest
being
in
here
peace,
in
buddy.
spirit. Joe/Tori, who's making eyes now
Joe-
because she's mad.
Joe loves this segment, so this is to honor him.
Joe, I hope you're watching, buddy. This tortilla's for you. All right, so
Final words,
what are we
Sam.
doing? Yeah, final words and stuff. Let's
got us
start
back on
with.
track.
I think we start with Sam.
Yeah.
Final word, go for
Sure,
it.
thanks. Why not? You guys talked about this earlier. We didn't touch a lot. I didn't get the chance to touch a lot about it. The game 2 years ago here in Lubbock. Absolute fireworks. One of the craziest games I've ever seen, to the point where I left the room whenever the defense was playing because I knew what
You
was
already knew it,
coming.
yeah.
I knew what was coming. So my final word, avoid. Avoid that. Do not come in here and let Texas Tech's offense hang around. Get some stops early on defense. Set the tone on offense. Kind of cruise through, but just like we talked about earlier, bend but do not break. Avoid a 66-59 point game. I think we'll get somewhat close, not that high, but just avoid chaos, because that's what it was 2 years ago. It was complete and utter chaos.
Yeah, my final word has to do with that game too. My final word is egregious, which you know what that means? It basically
Misspell
just
it.
means shockingly terrible. Both defenses last year looked just so bad, even though, you know, maybe we were expecting a lot of points. They looked just egregious. So let's avoid that egregiousness today.
Really punch the
Don't steal
word.
my-
Let's make some
you just
stops.
used my word.
Let's make some stops, okay?
You just used
Let's
my
do
word.
it.
She said avoid the egregiousness. Is that two? Does that mean she has 2 final words?
You're welcome. No, egregious.
This set could be described as a hullabaloo, maybe. I don't know.
Oh,
Boom, baby!
Nice.
I like it.
Throwback.
All right, you know, I've
Getting
been
outta
going
here.
with verbs the past couple of shows.
Yeah, that's your thing now.
I like verbs, but I'm not going to
I threw a
go
verb
for
in
it this
there.
time around. My
Yeah, you
final
did.
word is like this tortilla.
Why?
Flat.
Yes.
How does that apply, Colin?
It doesn't.
I was gonna say white at first, but
Here's how. I'll serve it to you on this delicious tortilla. We've talked all morning about how this atmosphere is going to be nuts. Blackout game, an offense that wants to really dominate all day, and then it's kind of that return factor. We've talked about it. Lincoln Riley, Ruffin McNeil, all these guys, and you're coming back after that 66-59 outing the last time you were here. This place is going to be nuts. You got to flatten that out. This place has to go flatline as soon as OU takes the football field. And I talked about it. Time of possession will be huge. I think that if Oklahoma can get out here, and really it's all about the confidence, the things that we've stressed earlier on in the show, if they just make this atmosphere flat and boring.
Boring, hey.
that's
It
kind of hard to
only
make a
helps.
stadium flat.
Bringing my
The
words
Sooners.
back.
Do you see how I've been incorporating things? I think I'm on
It's a
fire
little, it's a little
bit.
hard
I
to
don't
make
know.
a stadium flat. I feel like
The stadium is a little
You can
flat.
try.
It's pretty flat.
the field's flat.
It's expansive.
That's nice.
Expansive.
But yeah, I'm with you. Okay, flat, sure. It's like 4-letter words.
Way to
I
connect
like
the
it.
dots.
I like it.
Simple and delicious.
6
like
letters
a
at
tortilla.
max. I'm taking a page out of Malin's book here. I'm going xenophobia.
Good
Not
Lord.
a terrible word. Woo!
My final word is stop.
I know Malin knows what xenophobia is, but Sam and Colin,
My
do you know
final
what
word's
xenophobia
enough.
is?
Like enough of this.
Do you know what xenophobia is?
And it's being scared of. I've heard it before. Let me-
Zebras.
I know what an arachnophobia
No, that's
is.
not it.
That's
Okay,
what
that's
I
not
am.
it.
You have it.
Xenophobia. You want to take a shot?
No, I don't want to look. I don't want to look
enough,
stupid
to
on
be
television.
honest.
Xenophobia
I don't
is
want to look
the
dumb on
fear
television.
of the unknown. And as Tori was
That's what I
talking
was
about
gonna say.
earlier,
That's what I was
we
gonna
do
say.
not know what's going to happen today at all. You know, 2 years ago, 66-59 game was one of the most ridiculous things any of us have ever seen in sports. It was like, is it even a good game, or was it just a horrible game? I mean,
It was
nobody even
egregious
knows what to make of it
in a
still.
word.
It's been 2 years after the fact. We still look at that thing like, man, that happened, didn't it? That actually happened. What's going to happen in this game, specifically the defense? Are they fixed?
Yeah.
I don't know. They played better? Did Ruffin actually figure something out? Or is it going to regress and go back to what we've seen for years, especially in this place? It's always high scoring against these two teams play, especially here on the turf. Xenophobia. We don't know. It's kind of scary, but we're just going to go and we're just going to see what happens. Fear of the unknown. Xenophobia.
I'm still working
Okay.
on. I'm still working on spelling that one out.
It's an
What
X.
letter does it start with?
There's
It's
an
an
X.
X.
You knew that because
I know how
you
to
would have
spell
got that
it.
wrong.
My mom would be proud of me at home. I know how to spell that word.
All right, so we'll do call-outs now, I guess. That's usually what's next.
Yeah,
So
why not?
decisive.
Yeah, way to stand your ground.
All right,
Make sure you move the show.
Who are you calling out?
My call-out's going to be pretty simple, the secondary. You've seen a lot of improvement again from this week. I think a lot of that has had to do with Trey Brown being placed in that starting lineup. You saw Parnell Motley just very inconsistent. Trey Brown's more of an anchor there. He is a more reliable, may not create as many plays, but he will have some pass breakups, and you will see him be a more reliable player than Parnell Motley is. So the secondary as a whole needs to, again, contain Alan Bowman, contain this wide receiver core, bend but don't break, because 2 years ago, they about shattered. They about exploded.
Yeah.
They exploded. There were shards everywhere on the field. So the secondary is going to be a big part of this game. It's also going to rely a little bit on the pass rush to help alleviate that secondary, but they need to step up big tonight.
All right, well, my call out, the tortilla throwers.
I don't know what this is.
I've never been to a game in Lubbock, like I said earlier. I mean, do they like crumble them up and kind of throw them like a ball?
No, they throw like a frisbee.
Do they frisbee it?
Right?
Okay. Well, you know.
It's the aerodynamics.
Myself, Sam, and Tori will be in the press box, but these two are on the field shooting the game. At least one of them needs to get hit. I mean, I feel like it's not a complete trip unless, you know, Colin or Josh is taking a
Here's my question.
You've
tortilla
got
to the
one
face.
job.
Here's my question. They also throw batteries, which is scary. Do they wrap the battery in the tortilla?
So that's
Battery burrito.
I'm gonna stay with
Yummy.
Madeline's side here because that's why she's calling out the tortilla throwers, not the battery throwers.
I assume they're probably one
Tortillas
the
are
same.
harmless.
That's a
they
little
might
too
just
dangerous.
They might just make you feel sick for a little bit. That's
Also,
all.
They get
The batteries
pretty
are
hard.
Bonus call out. I think it was the Ames show, again, great show, where we picked an under-the-radar Big 12 player that we were kind of looking at. I picked Tony Jones, a linebacker for the Texas Tech Red Raider team. I looked at his numbers, and as far as tackles for a loss and sacks, he's on par with Kenneth Murray, leader of this OU defense. And you guys laughed at me, so bonus call out to him, bonus call
I
out
didn't laugh. I
to
wasn't
me for nailing that pick.
I wasn't on the set
They
when
do
that
now.
happened.
Yeah, that's not.
They do now.
That was not a call out at all.
Yes, it was.
Good point.
Okay.
Jeez.
Caught that one.
It's
Okay.
flying. The tortillas
It's
are
practice
flying already.
for the game tonight.
It's not even kickoff and they're flying.
All right.
Ready to go.
So my call out is something that obviously I've been stressing. I've been talking about time of possession a lot today.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that falls on the shoulders of Kennedy Brooks. I mean, here's the thing.
For sure.
Kennedy Brooks has had a great couple of games, but I don't think we talk enough about how this just has been kind of a spurt, right? This hasn't been continued by any means. I mean, it's been just a couple of games that he's seen consistent playing time. So with Kennedy Brooks potentially being the number one guy at the running back position, how does he handle this environment? How does he handle knowing the fact that it's going to be on his shoulders to make sure that Texas Tech's offense does not have the football and that they're consistently putting points on the board for OU? So we'll see how he handles it. I think he's an unbelievable player. I just want to see him continue to have this success because that has meant so much to Oklahoma.
For sure. No, he's looking for big things from him, and I'm looking for Sermon to kind of, take that job back a little bit. And he's, as I mentioned a couple times, he's a little bit better in the receiving game than Brooks is. So you think that this game would be more to his forte. Sun is so in my face right now.
I'm struggling to keep this eye
I'm just
open.
dying over here. So I'm gonna call out Lincoln Riley. That's a little bit different. I've never called out coach before. I don't think I've called out any coach before, but especially not Lincoln. This is a weird game for him. This is a lot of emotion. He coached here. He said it's weird to come through that visiting locker room. It's the first time he's been here as a head coach. Him and Cliff Kingsbury have a weird relationship. I don't know if they don't like each other, but they kind of feel like they don't like each other. I don't know if I'm just making that up. They have a weird thing going on.
It's an interesting dynamic.
They're weird. They have a weird thing. I feel like he really wants to come in here and just crush Tech.
Yeah.
I feel like he wants that. He's a guy who doesn't really say a lot, but you just get the vibe off him that, like, he's ready to go. He's ready. He wants to win this game big. So I'm calling him out. His last road game against TCU, he had what he called himself one of the worst, series of drives of play calling of his life. It's when they had a bunch of illegal formations and stuff. Yeah. They looked a little, they still put up 50 points in that game. They looked a little discombobulated for a little while in Fort Worth. Let's have him have his best game play calling, and let's see if he has the team ready to go and just can dominate this game as I know he wants
On Monday, he said that when he returned here 2 years ago as the offensive coordinator, he said it was really weird. He said it was weird, walking on the field, it just felt weird for him.
Yeah.
So I think especially even as now, obviously, head coach, it might be even weirder.
Yeah, he has a lot of history here. He's ready to go. He wants this one bad. He wants it big, too.
Yeah.
All righty, scores. These could be all over the place. I'm kind of curious what we got here. Sam, you can start.
Yeah, like I said, the score's going to be high because I think this Oklahoma offense. I think that Kyler Murray's going to play all 4 quarters, which is really bad news for Texas Tech because they're going to want to make sure that they keep this win secure if they get up and get a lead and all that good stuff. I'm going to go 55-38 OU. Like I said, I think a lot of points from OU's side. I think OU's defense will struggle at times. I think it's going to be close at the start. You'll see probably a halftime, and you'll see a lot of halftime adjustments from the defense, and I think eventually they'll pull away. Another big day for Kyler Murray. And Hollywood Brown, I think, is going to have a monster game. I'm calling 2 touchdowns.
He's kind of been
125 yards
doing
at
nothing.
least.
He's been a little quiet.
125 yards at least, and maybe 2 touchdowns today.
Yeah.
All right, my score similar to yours, a little bit lower. I'm going to say 49-31 Oklahoma. Like I said earlier, OU's just a little bit better on both sides of the ball. Maybe not a lot better, but definitely in terms of the numbers, they do look a little bit better on both sides of the ball. So I think the offense will be able to control Tech's defense, and the defense will be able to maybe not control, like you said, but, contain Alan Bowman in the Texas Tech Red Raider offense.
I like it. And I'm going to add 2 more, so I'm going to go 51-31, and I'm going to say this.
All right.
Wow.
I don't really know why 51-31 is what I'm going with, but I like it. I'll say that in this environment,
you throw tortilla. You're throwing pieces of tortilla.
My tortilla's falling apart here.
Practicing for tonight.
My tortilla's dry and cracking.
In this environment,
set the tone.
It will be very difficult, especially when this could be a learning experience for the Sooner defense right now, to immediately jump into the football game and be okay. Right?
Yeah.
There's going to be a learning curve at some point, at least you would expect. So, knowing that, I think that the Texas Tech Red Raiders have a chance to make things a little bit interesting to begin, but 51-31, I think eventually they pull away.
Yeah, I'm kind of there. I think there's a chance the defense is going to play better and is going to continue to improve, but how can I bank on that? How can I predict that based on what we've seen for the last 5 years from both these schools? I'm going to say 58-37 Oklahoma. I think it's a high-scoring game, not quite 66-59, but I think Kyler will score the points. Tech will hang around. I don't think it'll ever be in doubt, but it'll never be just a total beatdown either. It'll be kind of in between, 58-37.
I will bet each of you my tortilla that my score prediction is closer than yours. Does anyone want to take that bet?
It's broken.
What's the
This is the best tortilla in the world.
So you're saying if your tortilla's if your score is closer, we give you a tortilla?
Yes, we're betting our tortillas.
You can have it right now.
Sure, we'll be down on the field later. I'll give you one of those tortillas. You can have them. Enjoy.
All right, it's on, Sam.
Full of calories.
It's on.
The weirdest
You got some
I don't know what that's about.
You got some gluten if you want.
Any, to get it off the weird tortilla bet.
Feels like a tornado out here a little
Honestly, thank you. There you go. Any last final thoughts about the game before we give it back to the studio team to finish us up?
Man, this is going to be a fun game to watch.
Yeah,
I'm excited for it.
Regardless,
exactly. I think the environment, like we said, the blackout is going to be incredible. This Texas Tech team is going to show up to play.
Yep.
They're going to want revenge after losing in Norman last year.
We were praying for a night game.
Isn't it funny how
we got one.
Yeah, that is true. We've been banking
just
on
adds
this.
to the fun.
We've been banking on this for about 2 weeks now, hoping and praying that we would get a night game. It's finally here. The excitement's going to be there. It's going to be a fun atmosphere.
Isn't it kind of funny how just the kickoff time changes how you feel the game's going to go? It's almost like it's at night now. Tech's got a better shot because it's at night.
I feel like a blackout wouldn't be nearly as cool if it were 2:30.
No.
Or if the game was an hour from now,
yeah.
it would feel way different.
In the past couple of years, OU is undefeated when opposing teams black out stadiums.
It's interesting.
What's
stat?
another game where that happened?
I just saw a stat that said they're 5-0 when their other teams black out.
Bedlam, maybe? I don't even know.
That's brilliant analysis, Colin.
Yes. I saw a stat and I didn't really read into it too
Did
much.
Baylor?
Yes,
Do
they
blackout?
did the first year with Baker. Yeah.
That's right, they did.
So let's see how
That's
it
a cool
goes.
stat.
Maybe they keep that going.
It'll keep going.
So many stats.
Do they come out in the Stormtrooper uniforms?
Oh, I haven't even thought of that.
They probably won't, but that'd be cool.
That'd be interesting to see.
I think they rock the whites. I don't know. I don't think
they're going rock
I think they're going to go out now. I don't think so. I think they're going to rock the red helmets.
I wish that'd be fun. That'd be more fun.
Anyway. Yeah, a lot cool.
Alrighty. Well, that's it for us here from Jones AT&T Stadium. I got it right in the last one. That's what's up. From Lubbock, we'll give it back to studio team for Norman to finish us up. Next week, back at home, Bedlam next week. That should be fun. Oklahoma State. So, studio team, finish us up. Should be a good game tonight. Be sure to tune in OU Nightly throughout the week. We'll be able to post-game coverage. But we're not done here. Studio team. Bye from Lubbock.
Woo! Yeah!
Oh my.
It was like,
Welcome back to Game Day U. We're glad you stuck around. All right, I don't know about y'all, but the remote team having those tortillas making me a little hungry. I wish we had some over here, right?
Come
Or
on.
at least some batteries, right?
I
That we
haven't
can throw
eaten
at the
since-
cameras.
I haven't eaten since yesterday.
Well,
It's early.
we have been here since
I'm never
6:30,
hungry
so yeah,
this early.
makes sense. All right, in all seriousness, we've got some big matchups going on today. We'll start off with Georgia, Kentucky. Lauren, tell us your pick.
Well, like you said, a lot of big ones this week, a lot of deciding factors this week too. So I'm excited for this one. But I'm going to go with Georgia over Kentucky on this one. This is just plain a defensive battle today between the two. Kentucky's number 10 in the nation for total defense, and Georgia's number 14. I just don't think in general Kentucky's going to put up enough to keep up with Georgia. Jake Fromm looked a lot better last week than he has in a while. He 70.8% completion, 3 touchdowns, 240 yards. So I do think that when it comes down to it, it's obviously who's going to score the most points. I mean, plain and simple.
Sports are crazy like that.
Yeah.
I know, right? But I'm really just saying that because it is two really strong defenses against each other. So I'm going with Georgia.
Okay, this game is in Kentucky. Kentucky has a great defense, so there is a chance the Wildcats could get a victory. A small chance, we'll say that. The biggest football game in Kentucky's history, I believe. So once again, a lot of stakes. As Lauren said, Georgia got killed by LSU and then came back with a good win over Florida, so that was a good thing for Georgia. I think Georgia overall will win it, and I'm going to go with the victory of 31-17.
Oh, score prediction and everything.
All right,
Nice.
well, I'm going to agree with both of you guys. I think that
I'm so glad we're in agreement today.
Georgia will win this week. I think Georgia is a better team, but I do think this game is going to be very close.
Oh, yeah.
The reason I'm going with Georgia is Kentucky's only beaten Georgia 12 total times since 1956. Georgia's scoring 13 more points a game than Kentucky is, although Kentucky has a very stout defense, one of the better defenses in the SEC, and this is the biggest home game Kentucky probably has ever played, in their history at home, right today, which is crazy. We get to live through history.
Yeah.
But they really wouldn't have any offense at all without Benny Snell Jr. He's been, I think, like 78% of their total offensive production, so that's pretty insane to put all of that on one player. You see what happens in any sport whenever you put so much on one player, especially in a team sport like football. You can't do that and expect to beat great teams, although I do think the game will be close. I have Georgia winning.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Georgia's put up at least 36 points a game, except for against LSU. And then Kentucky, you see somewhere in the average of, in the 20s. So I don't know.
Kentucky's defense is good enough to really confuse them, though, and so that's what you have to watch.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Hopefully Jake Fromm will play as well as he did last week.
Yeah, well, I agree with y'all, and I'm not just saying this because I own a Bulldog, but I say Georgia, 38-24. I just think that Jake Fromm, he does good under pressure, like we saw in the Rose Bowl last year. He just excels along the whole entire way. With that being said, let's take a look at Penn State and Michigan.
Okay. Well, this game honestly reminds me a little bit of Penn State's game last week against Iowa, because Iowa, big, strong defense, and Penn State pulled that one out. But today, I do not think they're going to pull it out at all. I think Michigan's going to take this one and run with it. I'm going to say it again, say it every week until the conversation is dead. Trace McSorley, not a good quarterback. Plain and simple. I understand that they beat Iowa last week, but I don't think that's going to happen today. Michigan is going to take this one defensively, and it's going to ultimately be the deciding factor in this game. And, I really hope so, considering I had Michigan in on 4, so we'll see. They're at 4.
Okay, so Michigan is a 10-point favorite, and I'm questioning that. Why is that? Penn State's 2 losses are by 1 Ohio State and by 4 Michigan State. Michigan's best wins are over Michigan State and Wisconsin. I think Michigan is overrated, but they do have a good defense. Once again, defense is holding strong. Penn State will have a hard time scoring. I think Michigan wins a very boring game. Another score prediction, guys, 17-10. We'll see how that one goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So both you took Michigan, right?
Yeah, so far.
Let me guess.
No,
Here we go.
You don't know what I'm doing. I haven't told you yet. Michigan
you.
has outplayed Penn State all season. Penn State has been very lackluster in their bigger games. They've had to really struggle to come up with their victories when they've had their big wins, right? Penn State has a superior offense, though. They're scoring more points a game at a much higher clip. But Michigan has a superior defense. They're allowing like 150 less yards a game than Penn State is. Every team Michigan has played so far this season, though, has really played into the way that they want to play football. They've been a very tactical offensive style that the defense of Michigan has been able to work with. They haven't really stretched the field much, done anything flashy, and Penn State has the ability to do that. Penn State has a lot of weapons. They have a dual-threat quarterback. McSorley can use his legs as a weapon, and I think he has a good shot to do that. And I think that Penn State's going to come with a victory here and really help out the Oklahoma Sooners that we want to be helped out a lot in Norman. So I'm going with Penn State in this game. I think it's going to be a very good game, and I think that, yeah, we got a little bit of upset on our hands today. Penn State takes it.
All right. I think it's going to be close.
That's just my gut, though.
Yeah,
Just my
I
gut
feel like
pick.
it's going to be close also, so I don't know.
I'm taking offense in this offense-defense matchup.
Okay.
All right, well, let's wrap it up with the last one. Alabama, LSU. Who's your picks, guys?
Well, last week, again, I already mentioned this earlier, but I had LSU beating Alabama this season, so I'm going to go ahead and stick with that, and I'm going to go with LSU beating Bama today. Again, Alabama has not faced a defense like LSU yet so far this season. I think this is a true test for them, but Tua, yes, the best quarterback in the nation, probably the best player in the nation right now. But I still think that, LSU has a really strong run game. They, their quarterback situation isn't as great as I think they'd like for it to be, but they have a very strong defense, and I think that's going to be the ultimate deciding factor here. But I think this is going to be a close game, like almost within 3 points, I would say. So we'll see what happens, but I hope it's LSU.
I mean, LSU and Alabama have had some really good primetime matchups in the past. So,
oh, yeah.
I mean, it's all you can hope for as a football fan.
Yeah, with Death Valley, again, primetime.
But you're not going to get another 9-6 this week. You're not going to get another 9-6 victory.
No.
Like we had a couple years ago.
No.
Well, actually, it's probably like 2011 now. Wow. LSU.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
You feel old, Spencer?
Yeah.
Yeah, just 20, it's fine. LSU's victory over Georgia was great, and then 2 weeks ago they had a great victory over Mississippi State. The wins over Miami and Auburn, not as important as they were in the beginning of the season. Alabama has killed every team, but their most important win was over a 3-loss Texas A&M team. So I don't believe their schedule is as important or difficult as others have seen. This is going to be the deciding factor, I think, for the Heisman Trophy winner. I think that LSU's defense is one of the best in the nation, and I think they might be able to hold Tua back, and this is what I'm hoping. Let's just be honest. I hope they hold Tua back so Kyler Murray can swipe in there, jump in for Heisman favorite, and we can see something happen like that. But I'm going to say Alabama still wins, though, 41-17.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
If I was held back and still put up 41 points, I'd be pretty happy about that.
No,
that's not even close.
I just, that was my wish, is that they hold Tua back. But come on, it's Alabama. They're gonna do well. We've seen them do well this entire season, even though their games aren't as important.
So you don't think LSU will put up more than 17?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But we'll all be there tonight at 7, watching live.
I was
Fingers
gonna say I
crossed,
won't be
guys.
there, but I wish.
It'd be cool to be
It'd be so fun.
Like I said, best offense, second best defense in all of college football. Best player in all of college football. LSU has not beat them since 2011.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying.
LSU's not going to come close. They're not going to win the game. Alabama is just way too good. Alabama wins this game. I think it's going to be with ease. You're going to see the masterfulness that is Nick Saban and his Alabama Crimson Tide.
All right. I knew that was coming.
All right, well, let's hear y'all's upsets for the week.
Okay, well, I already talked about Iowa a little bit already, but I'm going to go with Purdue over Iowa. Purdue, we can never let this down of how bad they beat Ohio State a couple weeks ago. So I think that this one's going to be close again, but Iowa's defense is not going to be able to stop Purdue's offense, the offense that we saw a couple weeks ago. So I think it's going to be close, but, Iowa lost to Penn State and to Wisconsin, two very overrated teams. Spencer touched a little bit on Wisconsin earlier.
Yeah, they should not have lost that Penn State game either. They threw a pick at the 1-yard line, so that's tough.
Yeah, but still, I think Purdue's going to pull this one out, and I think that'd be really fun to see considering that big win a couple weeks ago.
Okay, so we have Notre Dame and Northwestern. Notre Dame opened with 7-point favorite, but the line jumped to a favor of 10-point. The Irish beat Pittsburgh, Vanderbilt, and Ball State by less than 10 points. They are giving in the game. Northwestern is better than any of those teams. Northwestern this year plays good when they are playing good teams, but they don't play well when they're playing bad teams. That's an interesting thing that I've seen. I think the Wildcats will play well this Saturday and take down the Irish 27-14. I know I'm playing both sides here, guys. I'm just trying to edge my bet with Notre Dame either losing or Notre Dame winning, but we'll see how that one goes also.
Yeah, Northwestern with a big win last week. So.
Yeah, you're right. Notre Dame did have some tough games earlier in the year, but that was a different quarterback and a different style of offense, and now that they've switched, Ian Book has really helped them out a lot more, right? My upset pick is Missouri is going to beat Florida this week. Now, Florida's been consistent all year, more consistent than we've seen them in the past, but I still don't think that they're that impressive. And Drew Lock, on the other end from Missouri, Drew Lock has all the talent in the world. He's a senior. He's struggled to just put it together week by week, but he has been playing better as of late. And they almost beat Kentucky last week. They had a 15-14 loss, which just gives credit to Kentucky's defense, as we mentioned earlier. That's a very good defense to only allow Missouri to put up 14 points with a quarterback like Drew Lock. But I think that Missouri will stun Florida. Missouri needs a win right here in conference play. They're 0-4 in conference play, 4-4 overall. Both teams coming off a loss. So I'm going to go and roll with Missouri. I think the Tigers are going to win this week and stun Florida and just really, really put a disappointing end to their season.
I would actually love that. So we'll see. Hopefully. I mean, that would definitely credit my, why is Florida 11 point a little bit more.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All right, guys, let's get a quick score prediction of today's OU game.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go 62-45 Oklahoma. So I think it's gonna be high scoring, not as high scoring as early 2016, but.
Okay, I'm going to go the same as I said, LSU and Alabama, 41-17. We'll see how OU does.
Wow.
I always want them to pull through.
All right.
All right, I got OU winning 49-35. OU gets it done. Go Sooners.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for sticking around and watching Game Day U today. Have a great game day.